Spaces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's January 28th. It's a Thursday, so we'll be taking your Thursday thoughts on a number of different topics. One that is not going to be a fun one or a pleasant one. MLS labor discussions continue to erupt and bounce around, and still lots of talking, lots of moving, and we'll get into that. We'll talk about Manchester United looking awful defensively yesterday. Just clear the ball. Just clear it. It's in your 18. Just clear the thing. Put it in the stands. There's nobody there you're even worried about hitting right now. Just put it into the upper deck. But you don't, and you give up a goal and you lose. We'll talk about Chelsea, who passed the ball a lot more than they usually have, but they looked like a work in progress. One training session does not fix everything, and Thomas Tuchel's debut they drew. New ownership in the NWSL. It's very exciting. Some potential updates to the She Believes Cup coming up for the U.S. women's national team. Lots of different things to get into on a Thursday. We've also got intern Niles' question of the day. We're going to get into that in hour number 2 about the Bundesliga. That is coming up at 10 o'clock after John's world-famous read.
What the hell was on his head?
I'm trying to avoid it so far because I guess John is being funny so he can talk to his black helicopters since he likes the conspiracy theories about everything. What are the black helicopters telling you, John?
Well, this is just my tune-in device. You know, you have to be prepared for any kind of a discussion or any kind of an update. You know, so I'm ready to go.
What on our topic list are you thinking that the black helicopters are going to need to talk to you about?
I have no idea.
I feel like I jumped onto Coast to Coast AM.
You did. You did, Jarrett. You did. I don't know why, but you did. So what are you what conspiracy theory are you trafficking today, John?
Oh no, it was just the pre-show discussion we were having about the New York Mets. And
yeah, so this is where this is coming from. You guys who are listening to the show or watching the show and seeing a tinfoil wrapped hat on John's head are wondering why. John sometimes forgets that when we have, our private discussions about the show and what we're going to talk about and what's going on in the world, not everybody sees that. So the reference really is only playing for a couple people who are involved in the show today. Mm-hmm. This whole GameStop stonks madness of madness is going on. There's the potential that it could affect the New York Mets, which is just hilarious in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And when John posted that the owner of the New York Mets said that it would not affect their finances going forward, so he believes that it will affect their finances going forward, I told him that he wears a tinfoil hat. Because if I say 2 + 2 = 4, John will say that I'm really meaning that it equals 6, and I'm just saying it equals 4. Correct?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's where I took that, yes.
Mm-hmm. The idea of the Mets being impacted by both this, where Reddit has basically short squeezed the stock, and the Bernie Madoff scandal in the span of 20 years is amazing that it might happen to the same team twice.
Exactly. It would be the most Mets thing ever.
It's pretty amazing. I'm going to twist Nathan Pugh's question a little bit to make it fit. So, what soccer ownership group would you want to potentially bankrupt in this kind of a situation? Because it's not like the Mets themselves are investing in it, or it's not affecting the Mets valuation. It's the ownership that you can hurt in a different way. What ownership group would you want to get the Reddit army after to bankrupt if they were involved in short selling?
Well, Nathan Pugh said Orlando in his original, if you could short a team and ruin them.
But that's not how it works, and that's where this gets a little confusing. Like, I worked for GameStop years and years and years ago.
Really?
Yeah, what? Like, I worked for GameStop. I worked in retail music. That's a known fact. I worked for GameStop for a while when retail music was crashing, and I didn't enjoy it because I don't get into video games to that degree. I like the sports games. Yeah. But it's the same thing that happened to retail music. I mean, you don't need to go to the store anymore. It's just it's a fact. So the business is not being affected by this in any way. The stock price going up a huge amount. And I think maybe this is confusing for It was confusing for me at the beginning of it. It's not going to help GameStop.
No.
GameStop can't make sales because people can download their video games. They don't have to go to the mall. They don't have to go to the retail location. So GameStop's got a troubled business. It's the same thing that Camelot Music and Blockbuster Music and Warehouse Music and all of them went through because you didn't have to go to the store anymore. So this is not about hurting or helping GameStop. It's about getting the hedge funds and affecting them. So to make the question relevant, you've got to twist it to what ownership group, if you hate the Mets, yeah, you might want to get in on this even more because then you could potentially be hurting the Mets. What ownership group would you want to get caught up in this? That's my question. Is if, and I would assume that it is your rivals, hated ownership group. There's a few who, like your membership teams, like your Spanish teams, like Barcelona and Real Madrid, who they're not going to be affected by this because they're membership driven. But I don't think the Glazers are involved in short selling. But if you hate Manchester United, well, there you go.
That's why I figured Nathan would go for ownership group. Yeah,
that's what you're looking to do. It's always funny when people comment on retail music. DM Tim said Circuit City tried to hold on to CD and DVD sales for way too long. Everybody did. I mean, everybody.
So did Mike Ashley.
No, John, it's not that. This is a situation where GameStop or Media Play or Camelot Music couldn't survive because that's all they did.
Right.
The number one sales item in the retail music stores that I worked in for years and years was music. It was CDs. We sold movies too, but it was CDs. And when you're not selling a bunch of CDs, you're kind of stuck if that's your main business. If you're not selling a bunch of video games, you're kind of stuck. Your Best Buys in your Circuit Cities, of course they can sell CDs and DVDs. It's not the number one thing. They did it, and they helped hurt the retail music stores before digital did, because Best Buy could sell a new album at $10, get you in the door. You might buy a computer, you might buy a TV, you might buy something else. That's where they're going to make their money. The CDs were a loss leader for them. You were paying less than Best Buy paid for the CD, but it was to get you in the door. Retail music stores couldn't do that. Video game stores couldn't do that. So it's a different situation. Mike Ashley trying to bring back a retail store is a whole different conversation.
Nathan agreed that the question needed to be twisted, and Michael Head's early thought is Red Bulls. He says, "I'd love to see that franchise bankrupt or fold."
I'm having a Red Bull.
Get you in the door.
As long as their liquid refreshment still survives, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, there's a lot of German soccer fans who hate that Red Bull is involved in Leipzig. I don't know if it's the same thing in Austria. I'm thinking maybe it's not quite to the same degree, but I'm sure there's some, because they've been able to come in and invest a lot of money and shake up the system in some ways, like the Reddit traders are shaking up the system. So Red Bull's maybe not as evil as we think they are in kind of a way. Here they're not doing that. Here they're not spending like that. They're trying to develop talent. Red Bull in soccer is a really weird case study, and I'll be curious to see when somebody writes it. Domer says Red Bull racing teams are awesome. I don't think Red Bull's the big evil here. I really don't. I think they're okay. And yes, I'm biased because I'm drinking their product.
And Nathan has instantly apologized for the derailment of the show.
No, John was wearing a tinfoil hat. That derailed the show. It wasn't Nathan at all.
I was going to say, that hurts, by the way. I don't know how people can get away with doing that for as long as some do.
See, Jarrett? You start trying to trade in the tinfoil hat thing, and you start injuring yourself.
Yeah. My tinfoil hat is metaphorical and only ever comes out when we do juice boxes. Mostly with Russia or Eastern Europe.
Yes. Never touch Russian soccer with any juice boxes ever.
Not when there's an opportunity to short sell it, right?
Uh-huh. It's just that's not a good idea. That is like at the top of the list. Any Russian sport, it could be the KHL, it could be the Russian Prem, anything like that. Don't touch it. Do not.
I don't think John is having sympathy for the tinfoil hat community, J-Dub. I think he was mocking them, but he did sound tinfoil hattish when he told me that the Mets ownership said that this short selling fiasco was not going to affect their business, so he thought that it was going to affect their business. That sounded very tinfoilish to me. So
yeah,
I accused him, and he showed up with a tinfoil hat.
And the pointy edges of tinfoil really do dig into your head.
So, maybe that's an improper application of the tinfoil, John.
Well, of course, me trying to make a tinfoil hat on very, very short notice would lend itself to have improper applications of tinfoil. So that was the end of a roll, so I had to kind of mold it to the first hat that I could find.
There we go. Okay, so we've avoided the elephant in the room for a little while, but we got to talk about it. MLS labor discussions, which are no fun at all. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be much fun at all here over the next probably 24 to 48 hours. If you go to the @MLS 2021 account, which is legit, which looked fake but is legit, they posted yesterday afternoon an update, and let's get to the whole update. Continuing discussions with the MLSPA regarding how we can work together. Recap of the good faith proposal. This is from MLS that ensures players will receive 100% of their salaries in 21 in exchange for a 2-year extension of the CBA. On January 22nd, the MLSPA provided a response to the league's proposal, and MLS responded with a counter proposal on January 25th. We are prepared to meet with the MLSPA and players at any time this week to get a deal done before the January 29th deadline. Given the impact of COVID-19 on how MLS clubs will need to operate during preseason, we must finalize an agreement by this deadline in order to provide teams and players adequate time to prepare for the opening of training camps. MLS concluded their thread with, MLS and its clubs have enormous respect for everything players have done helping build the league and the sport throughout the years, and they've gone above and beyond during the pandemic. We know everyone wants to get back to the game. We do want to get back to the game. That statement, the number one thing that jumps out to me as a question is the deadline part of it, because MLSPA has questioned that as a true deadline. We don't know, because we don't know the terms of the CBA. We don't know the terms of the force majeure clause. We haven't seen it. I would assume, I think it's a safe assumption, and lawyers check me if this is not a safe assumption. I would not think that invoking a force majeure clause would give you an open-ended ability to break the agreement. I think there would have to be some kind of a deadline as to whatever the negotiating period is as part of it, but a deadline to actually break the agreement. If you invoke force majeure, I don't think you could break the agreement 6 months later. Like, it would feel like there would have to be some kind of deadline to make that decision. If that's not a safe assumption, please let me know. That's where my head has been the whole time. The 30-day period, the 29th would be the time that 30-day period would be up. But does that mean they have to decide if they're going to break the CBA at that point? Does that mean they can extend negotiating past that point? We don't know. We don't know the agreement. Now, that sounded kind of ominous, but maybe not completely. It depends on how much tinfoil you have on your hat. It depends on how you're reading it and probably what side you're on as to how you see that statement. That came out 1 o'clock-ish yesterday. Well, after that, later in the day, Jeff Carlisle at ESPN broke the news that MLS had issued a memo to its teams and league staff instructing them to prepare for a work stoppage. It was sent by Mark Abbott, the president of the league, deputy commissioner, and it comes ahead of a January 29th, midnight January 28th, which today is January 28th, deadline to negotiate a revised CBA agreement. Now, that sounds a little more like, okay, you have to make a hard decision at the end of the 30 days. And in Carlisle's article, he talked about this deadline part of it, and the league has insisted there needed to be urgency because the window's due to close on the 29th. MLSPA has insisted the date isn't a hard deadline. It's got to be in black and white. and this is one of my major frustrations with this, and it feels like posturing. There has to be language in the CBA that both sides negotiated that tells you what it is and what it isn't. Carlisle did say a source with knowledge of the situation said that the league is expecting the MLS to PA to submit another counter offer prior to the deadline. I'm sure most of you have read this. I'm sure most of you have seen where things stand at the moment. Whatever questions you have, let's go ahead and take them. I think you know how I feel about it. None of this is helpful. None of this is going to benefit the game in the long run. I think questions about, how much MLS has lost during this time or what their revenues are, I don't think that really matters, to be perfectly honest. I think that has nothing to do with it. This is not a normal CBA negotiation. This is something that we've never seen. This is something that we haven't seen in any major sport in this country, and we haven't seen in any league worldwide yet because of the unique situation of a players' association, of a CBA, and of a force majeure clause, and of a pandemic. There's really no denying that they've lost money. I don't think anybody could stand up and say that MLS has not lost money over the last year and won't lose money in the upcoming year. In Carlisle's article, the league said losses of nearly $1 billion in 2020, and Carlisle included that $725 million of that was due to the pandemic. There would be more if you don't have full capacity this season for any period of time. I mean, you can judge it off other teams around the world when they've announced their losses too. Like, there's losses. There's no way to say there's not. So this is a situation that requires, I think, both sides to work together to solve it, and there's not working together right now. And it's not going to get solved if there's not working together. And a work stoppage doesn't help. Even if it's short, it doesn't help. It does a lot of damage. I would not expect it to be long because I don't think the players benefit from that. The league definitely doesn't. If you don't play games, you're going to have to give money back to sponsors. You're going to have to give money back to TV sponsors, TV broadcasters. You're going to have a lot more losses on top of it. Nobody's winning from this situation, and that's why it's so incredibly frustrating. But we'll take your questions on it. So tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. Throw them into the Twitch pitch now, and we'll start to get into it.
Just to recap once again, in exchange for no cuts to salaries, MLS was asking the players to allow a freeze on the growth of the cap between 2020 and 2021, extending the length of the deal for an additional 2 years through the 2027 season. MLS says the restructuring would save, and this is according to Carlisle, $100 to $110 million over the life of the CBA, on top of what the MLSPA says are $150 million in concessions that the players made last June when the most recent CBA was agreed upon, and that also included a freeze in the salary cap in 2020 and 2021. So that's
because it got pushed back.
Right.
One thing that has been reported is that the updated counter proposal from the league to the players' response, I don't know what the players' response was. That's a little unclear. It sounds like the players' response was not to give anything back, but actually want more money back at the end of the CBA and not have it extended. It sounded like from the reporting that MLS has not agreed, I don't know, is willing to extend the spend more in the final years of the CBA, but they want the additional 2 years of the CBA. So they're willing to renegotiate the spending in those years. If the players responded with what you're saying we're going to ignore and we want more back, is that I don't know what that is. Like I don't know what's going on with that. There's got to be more to it. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I 100% think there will be a season. There's no question about that to me, because if there's not a season, you might not have a league. Right. And the ownership has invested too much into this for that to happen. The players would not benefit from not having a major professional league in this country. It's just math. There's fewer jobs. I mean, duh. So, again, nobody benefits from any of this. I understand there's losses. I understand the players don't want to give back anything. I get both sides of that. I totally understand it. But nobody's going to win from this, either side who's arguing. And the people who are going to get hurt the most are the fans out there who are emotionally invested. You can't quantify what an emotional investment is in dollars and cents, but you're going to break kids' hearts. And you're also going to hurt all the people who work on game days and need these games to survive. And that's restaurants around stadiums. That's all of it around it. That's people who work game days. That's everything. There's so much more on the line than just the owners and just the players. That needs to be remembered as you're going back and forth right now in the media, because for whatever reason, you can't do it privately and get this done.
Yeah, for me, it always has come back to, yes, you're looking at a league, but for me, I always look at the daily impact, the game day impact, everyone who's associated with the club on that match day, whether it's the folks that walk into the stadium and sit in their seats. It's the folks who are inside the stadium proper who have that particular job, whatever it is, if it's security or concessions or ushering or whatever, all of those other daily impacts, the folks around the stadium proper that might have, parking investments, those kinds of things. It's not just what we talk about at the top line. It's all that game day element that's there too. And a lot of that trickle down that's lost in that as well. Jarrett, what's on your mind?
Well, the mute button for one thing, because I started talking over John and realizing, wow, he's just blowing right past me. Oh, it's because I think I've said all I need to say about it in the past. It's going to be debated in public because it's just a dance that everyone does. I feel like they're not the first league we've seen do this, telling everybody prepare for a work stoppage. It always does get people to jump a little bit as if they saw a spider in the corner of the room. Work stoppage doesn't help anybody, especially with MLS. Different leagues handle work stoppages differently. Major League Soccer is not in a position to benefit from a work stoppage, in my opinion. Not that anyone ever is, but I think they can get really dinged incredibly heavily by it, in just because of the way the sport is in a position of growth, but it's not there yet. So I don't think anyone benefits from this sort of thing. And it would be great to be able to just lock the owners and the players in a room and tell them, figure it out. We'll open the door when you figure it out. Until then, we'll, slide in a couple granola bars and a bottle of water.
And there better be some progress to get those granola bars, too.
Yes.
We better have some.
Oh, yeah, you're getting
progress.
You're getting the Kroger brand granola bars until you make progress.
Yeah, you give us something in paper that what you're working towards. Okay, then you'll get the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you have to show the evidence. You can't just sit there and say that. We got progress to get your.
Yeah, you got to show some things that you've both signed off on.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be holding these people hostage to get this done. They're going to have to do this of their own goodwill because it's really important. This is affecting not just the current generation. A work stoppage. Saw it in the National Hockey League. I'm a prime example of it. I was ready to buy Thrashers season tickets. I was ready to buy personalized jerseys. I was excited about the upcoming season, and then it got taken away, and I never got back in. Nope. I never bought back in. I did not go to another Thrashers game, and it wasn't out of some personal stance. I didn't care as much. That's what it did. It didn't have anything to do with I'm going to make sure everybody knows that I'm mad and I'm not going. No, I didn't. I just didn't go. Yeah. I just didn't go anymore. And I went to, before that, probably 10 to 15 games a year. I'd buy game day tickets and go down. 99X used to do a great $9.97 day of the game ticket. They just have it in different sections, and I'd grab a ticket and go. Yep. Never went again after that. Can't afford that right now. This is in a growth mode for the game in this country. There's bigger things at play. You have a World Cup coming in 26. You've got to work together because you don't have a league without the players. The players don't have a place to play without a league. Nobody's going to win if this is a stoppage or worse. It's just nobody wins that. So think about the bigger picture. Yes, you both have valid arguments. Now work together to figure it out because there's something that is completely out of the hands of both of you. This is not a normal negotiation. And that's why the framing of this as a normal collective bargaining agreement is incredibly frustrating. There's no denying losses, massive losses, huge losses. Take pictures of stadiums with no people in it and games happening. There's loss, like right there. See those seats? They would be full. People would have bought those tickets. They would have bought hot dogs. They would have bought beers. They're not doing that. So that's money out not happening. It's not hard to figure out. Sponsorships. You couldn't fulfill all your sponsorships. Why? You didn't play 34 games. You didn't have people in the stadium to activate sponsorships for. There's no denying losses. Okay, so figure out how to work together to move forward. You have to. The players can't afford massive pay cuts. This isn't La Liga. This isn't the Premier League. Totally understandable. But figure it out so you guys can work together as partners. Because that's the whole point. Because neither one of you survive without the other. That's why this is so annoying. And you're affecting other people by doing it this way. And that's even more annoying. Let's get into the questions. We've got a bunch on the Twitch pitch. I'm going to try to kind of go through them quickly to make sure all the points are on the table. We'll get to the Twitter questions after that. Strummer John with a good point, and without seeing it, we don't know, but he's right. There's got to be some ambiguity in the terms of the force majeure clause in the agreement for both sides to be taking these positions. The only other explanation is they're doing it out of bad faith because, like, they agreed to this, they signed off on it. I'd assume every lawyer you could possibly imagine went over it with a fine-tooth comb. Like, it should be in black and white. So if there's ambiguity, then it was a bad clause to begin with. Or somebody's not arguing in good faith here, and we don't know who. Jason brought up Doug's tweet about the balance sheets. And again, where I'm saying it doesn't matter is because that's a topic, and Jarrett, you've talked about this on the baseball side because you follow that more than I do. That's a huge issue in baseball, is the players don't believe the numbers the owners are giving them when they negotiate CBAs. This is not that. This is a correction to a CBA because of a global pandemic. It's not about the profit and loss sheet, really. I mean, the losses, we could argue if it's 725, if it's 500, if it's $1 billion, I mean, whatever. It's a lot. There's no way to deny that. So I don't even know if that comes into play in this argument to me. To me, it doesn't. To me, it has nothing to do with the conversation between the players and the league because the losses are undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, there have to be losses. It's at the very least, you're not making profits. I mean, which is what you were going for every year. Baseball is like a lot of sports, though. I mean, all these sports are that way where it's the players want to see the books. And a lot of times you're not going to see the books. And that's not a unique situation in this situation. It sucks. I mean, you'd like everything to be on the up and up. But everybody lost money this year. So I think at this point, if they're asking, how much did you lose? That's the question they're going to be looking to ask versus did you lose anything? Yeah, everybody lost money on it. Sponsorships, television. When you don't have enough games, you're not fulfilling those contracts. But I'm actually really curious how those contracts are shaping up and how the Sinclairs of the world are looking at that from last year to this year. Of okay, well, that's kind of a unique situation for you not to fulfill the contract. How much how much is the league getting dinged for that? Yeah.
What are the make goods in all of this?
Yeah, like where are the make goods? Where are the chances to fulfill those ends of the contract? That's going to be there's a lot of threads here. It kind of is a labyrinth of every time you ask a question, there's going to be another question or two that comes with it before you can answer the first one, and it's not as simple, I think, as people want to make it.
See, but this is where I bang my head against the wall because does it matter what the make goods were for a sponsor for a team in a market versus what are we going to figure out here? What's on the table, first off, there's no pay cuts for the players right now. The losses are right now. There's no pay cuts for the players right now. The trade-off is extending it. Now, the players are valuing extending the CBA at X amount, and they're saying they're giving up more than the league is hitting in losses. I don't know if you can quantify that because it's in the future. Like, you don't know what that's going to be. There's no way to truly know what a new CBA would be at that point. That's what's so hard about this, and that's why I don't care about the profit and losses sheets. To be perfectly honest, because there's enough data out there to know they've lost well over $150 million, and I think that's what the players are saying. All of this combined, I think, John, you said something earlier. I want to make sure it's clear. The players aren't saying that they gave up $150 million in concessions in last year's deal. They're saying over the life of what they had agreed to in February versus what they agreed to in June to adjust for the pandemic, $150 million. They didn't give back $150 million.
The Carlisle wording.
No, John, no. They did not give back $150 million in 1 year.
No, not in 1 year, no.
Okay, that's the point. The league lost more than $150 million in 1 year. There's no way to deny that. Look at every other league. Do the math. Do the math on any team. There's a problem because both sides are arguing something that you're trying to frame it in certain ways. You're trying to posture. You're trying to do this. You're trying to do that. Look, you're trying to play to your bases. I get it. This isn't politics. You're not running for an election. You're not trying to manipulate the media here. I guess you are. You're not going to win anything out of that. What you're doing is creating more friction in a situation that there is no precedent. There's nothing to look back on and say, oh, well, the NHL dealt with this in 1974, and this is what they did. There's nothing. There's zero. So work together to figure it out. The players don't want to lose money. The owners don't want to lose money. Nobody wants to lose money. How can you two work together? Because neither one of you exists without the other. If you can go into the conversation like that, as opposed to going into it like, I need to see your books, I need to see this, I need this, that's not going to lead to anything good. And that's where we are. And there's bigger things at play. Perfect Tommy says, do the owners and players not realize how much this could hurt the league if there's a lockout? I hope they do. They have to deep down. The owners know what they've invested in terms of money into this, especially the ones who have been there from day one. I mean, just money after money after money. They're starting to make some of it back now. You don't want to end that. The players maybe don't. Some of the guys who've been in the league for a long time do, because they remember what it was like when Chivas USA was contracted. They remember what it was like when there were 12 teams, 14 teams. They remember what those days were like. Some of the long-term guys. But none of them remember what it was like in 1995 when your first division league had 6 teams and you're playing in high school stadiums. And games were not on national TV, and you didn't have an average attendance in 5 figures. Like, those days, not that long ago, and I don't know if they're in mind right now. Like, everything's come a long way, and it can hurt if you have a lockout or a work stoppage of any kind. If it is a situation where you need a few weeks to sort this out, because you want to see a few weeks what happens with vaccines. You want to see if that speeds up the ability to get fans back in the stadiums. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. If the start of the season gets pushed back a couple weeks, that's fine. You can make that work. You can manage that. You can sell me on that easily. You can say, look, that's a couple more weeks that are going to be on the back end of the season that we're going to have fans in the building. And that's going to be revenue, and that's going to be good for the games. Okay, I'm in. Cool, I can work with that. But a lockout of any significant period of time, Jarrett, Scotland did it. Scotland, not a lockout, but Scotland stopped. They didn't finish their season. France didn't finish their season. Those are the 2 leagues that I feel like are in the worst shape right now because of that decision. That long gap of no games, not finishing the last season, it's not going to help you right now, in my opinion. And right now, if you don't start till much later with MLS, it's not going to help you.
It was very frustrating, to watch it, because you want to see the games. You want to see how everything, how everything happens, how everything unfolds. But they're doing at the time. That it was a unique situation to me because they were doing at the time what they thought was best with the information they thought they had then, and it was a different move than a lot of leagues in Europe made. So it's going to be very weird how it all unfolds. With the rest of the leagues, there have already been calls in Scotland by some teams to say, hey, maybe should we finish this season out right now? Which it seems like they're going to. They're always working with information that they got at the time, and whether or not they are making the right decision, sometimes we don't know that right away. And sometimes it looks real bad. Sometimes it looks good. Sometimes it's kind of muddy in the water. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this year shakes out with a vaccine being out there. How effective is it? Do things change? Where are we sitting at in a month's time, 3 months' time? What does it all look like? Because, man, I don't know. It could all be very interesting. And we might look back in January and see, man, January we were really worried about nothing. Or, man, remember January? January was great.
Yeah, we don't know, and that unknown makes this hard. It does. It makes it hard to quantify how much concessions does the league realistically need. How much should the players consider giving back? And remember, where things are right now, from what we know in this negotiation, 0 pay cuts right now. The CBA, the league wants to extend it for 2 years. The league has, in the last update, and this has been reported, of course it has not been shown exactly what the numbers are, the league has upped their offer from just extending the CBA 2 years to increasing the cap, at least in the last year. I don't know if it's the last 2 years, above and beyond what's already in the CBA. That's where we know things stand right now. This should not be this hard to work through. I don't think. It feels like you're not that far off. So when something like this comes out, it's like, okay, is this just doing your job and saying, yes, this is where things stand. We don't have an agreement. We're up to a deadline. That means you need to be prepared for a potential lockout. I would assume the players would be getting the same kind of communication from their leadership because that's what you do in a situation. Look, deadline's coming. We don't have an agreement. This is what could happen. I hope that's all it is. I really do. Because it doesn't feel like it should be more than that. It feels like they should be able to get this done. And that's why when J-Dub asks, how scared should I be that we won't have a season this year? I want to tell you, don't be scared. I want to tell you that there should not be a reason to be that fearful. I don't think there is. But the fact that we haven't gotten this done yet causes some alarm. It should. And just the unknowns of everything with the pandemic causes alarm, too, because none of us know what's going to happen in general with stuff. So I don't think you should be scared, J-Dub, but I understand why you would be, and I have fears, too. More about delays rather than no season. That would be completely and utterly shocking, because there's no way where the negotiations are right now from where they've been reported should lead you to no season. That should not happen. It doesn't feel like it's that far apart, John.
No, it doesn't. And, in the past when the NBA has had negotiations and there was a deadline that was put out publicly, they would push it back and push it back. I think the last time there was an NBA negotiation, I think it was pushed back 5 separate times, and seasons weren't impacted. And everything happened the way that the NBA wanted it to go. The last NBA work stoppage was back in 2011. There have been other negotiations since then to continue to have their product out there. And so right now where MLS is as a league in the consciousness of the sports fan in the United States, I think you've passed hockey. I think you're a part of the Big Four discussion. And you would hope that both players and teams understand MLS's place right now in the landscape for sports, and that you don't want to jeopardize all of the growth that you've made to get to this point because you are disagreeing on something. I view this as there are elements here to discuss. You agree on things. You agree on a general idea that you don't want to stop all of the growth. And that's where we've been talking about in the first 40 minutes of the show. Get behind closed doors, get this figured out. I don't think there's a big gap here. I don't think there's a chasm that should cause a stoppage of a season. So just as Turner Kirby said in the Twitters when all this started happening yesterday, Turner just said, just get your ish together. And I think that's the prevailing thought from a lot of fans out there right now.
I would love to know from one side or the other with fact.
Yeah.
About something you said. You talked about the NBA, and other leagues have always done this too. You get close to the deadline, things start to get antsy, you can extend deadlines. This is not those negotiations, and I think that needs to be 100% clear, because everybody's framing this in the sense of, well, the NFL did this, well, the MLB did this, well, NBA did this, well, NHL did this. This is a force majeure clause that has been invoked. This is not the end of a CBA where you have a negotiating period and it's all spelled out and you can extend it because it's all arbitrary deadlines. This is a clause in a contract to be able to break it. There's got to be hard and fast rules in what that looks like. There has to be. Otherwise, it was the worst negotiated clause of all time. There has to be a deadline of some sort about when either side can break the agreement as a result of the force majeure clause being invoked. There's got to be a deadline. And if you can extend that, great. Let's stop with that posturing first off. What are the terms here? Can you extend it because you're talking? Great. Can the players agree to give the league the opportunity to make this decision later so they can keep talking? I don't think they would. They should. If that's the case, I don't think they would, and they're going to try to force the hand. And then the league's going to have to be the bad guy if they feel like they can't get a negotiated deal done and they break the CBA, and then you're starting over. In some ways, you shouldn't. You should actually start with what you have on paper, and maybe it's just as simple as, again, posturing of, we're breaking the CBA, but this is where the CBA starts with what we've already negotiated. We're not going to try to change anything else. I don't know. That's what's so frustrating about all this, is it's so unknown because we've never been in a situation. I don't think you can even compare it to those negotiations where deadlines were extended, because we don't know the terms of how you can extend it right now. This isn't like the CBA's up, or this isn't like a negotiated period of time that you can sit down and talk about the next CBA. This is a force majeure clause that we've never seen invoked in professional sports. Now, this is brand new, so they need to take it seriously, and they need to get this done as quickly as possible. It's frustrating. AA 5 Stripes says, for players newly signed from other leagues, do they get hurt for not playing games? Absolutely. Players who haven't signed yet but have been negotiating, yeah, they're probably going to hold off. Now, MLS's transfer window, you've got time to bring players in later, but when you go past the windows in other leagues, it gets harder to bring people in, because the teams on the other side can't replace those players because their window has closed. It can get complicated. If this drags out, if there is a work stoppage, it will affect the players coming into the league. It will affect the league's transfer business 100%. And this is a league that is starting to make money on transfers like they have never done before. That would be the worst thing possible. They're coming up with some sales. The Brian Reynolds deal looks like it's done with him going to Roma. That is a move that I would have never expected 6 months ago, let alone years ago, and especially not during a pandemic for that kind of number. You can't affect that business, because that's how you're going to make the stuff up if you're the league. You're going to make it up by player sales. And I think the players have said that in so many words is, okay, you're worried about losses. This is where you can make it up by how you handle your budgets and how you handle your transfer business. And it is. It's new money that you haven't been bringing in typically. It will help you make up the losses. But if you have a delay in the season, it's going to hurt that possibility more than it's going to help it, in my opinion. Maybe it's a short-term hurt. Maybe that bounces back by the summer. I don't know. But it's not a good fit. None of this is helping. Perfect Tommy says CBA negotiations are always a beating. They are. This is just such a unique one that I really try to take it out of the normal CBA conversation. because I think by comparing it to other ones, we're missing some of the points here. Because this is a very specific argument. The league feels like the losses due to the pandemic require them to renegotiate some of the terms of the CBA. The players disagree. It's not a normal one about how much spending are you going to do for the players, what are the salary numbers, what's the percentage of revenue that's going to be. It's not those discussions. It's not. So, I don't know. Strummer John says the extension of the CBA for 2 years is the disingenuous part for me, and it can be. It absolutely can be. It's a negotiating point that they need to figure out. I've felt like that is, without knowing what happens next, maybe an overreach, maybe too much you're asking for. Maybe there should be an opportunity to readdress that at some point, in the next couple of years, once we get a little bit past the pandemic and we know what the effects of it are long term. I don't know. I think increasing the spending in those last years is a good step in the right direction. And I hope they will both negotiate that back and forth, because if it is not purely extending it, but extending it and enhancing it, maybe that's more palatable. I don't know. It feels like they're moving in the right direction on that, Strummer John. But yeah, your point is valid. Like, that's a big ask. Is 2 years added on at the end, does that equate the 2 years of losses that the league will have in these two pandemic-affected seasons? I don't know if any of us can answer that question right now. I don't think anybody really can. So, I don't know. Don't know. Walchara, yeah, I didn't think we'd be at this point. I absolutely didn't think we'd be at this point. I don't think we should be at this point, and it's very frustrating that we are. I do think there would be a season, 100%. I think that was the point that we disagreed on weeks ago. Just because it'd be catastrophic to the game and to these owners and to these players if there's not a season. So I think there'll be a season. But could there be a delay to it? Sadly, yeah. And there shouldn't be. You've got time. You've got time to sort this out. I don't know what the parameters of using that time are. No, none of us do. There's a lot of guessing. But the people in the room do. I hope. If they don't, then somebody's not doing their job. And they've got to use that time properly and get it done. If this is just deadline posturing, okay, you got till midnight. Get it done. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and hear, yeah, we couldn't do it, broke the CBA, locking everybody out, no idea when the season starts. I don't want to have that conversation tomorrow. I'll tell you one thing, I really do not. But that could happen. That doesn't mean the season is canceled, though. I think that needs to be understood. I really, truly believe there will be a season. It would blow my mind if there's not a season, because it would be potentially, I don't think owners would stick around. I think some owners would leave, because there's no way they could recoup all that. There's no way. It would be damaging to everybody. So, yes, I do 100% believe there would be a season. That's the part that we disagreed with, Walchara. How you get there, I don't know. I didn't think it'd be like this. It shouldn't be like this. Matt Wagner asks, do we know who our new team rep is now that Jeff Larentowicz is gone? Is it Goose? And I would assume that it is, but I don't know. They haven't had official team activities since Jeff Larentowicz's contract ran out. So I don't know I don't know if they can vote without coming into camp. Like, those things, I don't know the parameters of that. I would assume that it would be, because I think he was either like the second rep or the assistant rep or whatever their terminology is. That makes tons of sense, but I don't have that answer for you, Matt Wagner. I don't know if anybody's talked about that, what that process is for deciding team reps and all of it. Let's see. I want to see if there's anything else on CBA. Good point. And Jarrett, this is another one in your wheelhouse. Perfect Tommy says, do you remember how baseball negotiations used to be? After the 94 strike, you never heard anything from either side. That's another one. And again, I can speak to it. And this isn't going to happen with me in the sport of soccer, but it does affect fans. Like baseball, I grew up loving baseball. I could tell you the lineups of every team in the National League. I could mimic the batting stance when I was a kid of every lineup. And I lost a lot of my love for baseball when you didn't have a 94 World Series. I never got into it in the same way after. I pay attention. I keep up. I try to get back into it. I don't have the same love for it like I did because that broke my heart as a kid. I was in high school and that broke my heart as a fan at that time to lose that World Series. And even the World Series win the next year, it would have felt different if that had been before the strike. I mean, Jarrett, I think with baseball, like, yes, they've bounced back, but it was a rocky road to bounce back from that. It didn't happen immediately, right?
No, I mean, I even a couple of years ago, I remember one of the jobs I had, we had a nighttime security guard who I used to talk to all the time. That guy was in his 50s or 60s, and he never forgave Tom Glavine.
Uh-huh.
And this is in the mid-2000s, like, 2010, 2011 era. Maybe a little bit later than that. But he never forgave Tom Glavine for all that. That stuck with a lot of people. And baseball nowadays has resorted to just kind of like consistently blowing its own foot off in any way that it can. Baseball's really amazing in that way these days. And that if they stumble on a good idea, it's their goal to immediately make sure that good idea is buried in a vault next to the Ark from Indiana Jones, being examined by top men. And this is just the absolute dumbest thing, the way that they kind of handled things. So you don't want to make that negative impact that baseball has. So you want to get it done, but at the same time, it is easy to say we want to get it done, but at the same time, the players and the owners are going to be looking at this going, hey, we want to get this done, but we want to make sure that we're not going to get hung out to dry on it. And this is where I leave you today, by the way.
Thank you, Jarrett. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, Jarrett.
Alex Pacine says, I guess I'm the only weirdo who doesn't mind the posturing and positioning. Do you think that we here care about this more than the players themselves or the owners? We have to put our emotions away. This is a labor dispute. Where is everyone when auto workers do the same? I'll tell you my issue with it, Alex, because I understand what you're saying. I get it. It is part of the game. I think the more public the posturing is, the harder it is to get a deal. That's my frustration. If you are in a negotiation and you are bad-mouthing the other side publicly, people start to take offense to things. It starts to create ill will, and then it affects the negotiation. Just get it done. Posture and position privately and have your debates about all the things that are being said publicly privately. I think it just creates a better negotiating environment. That's my issue with it completely. No, I don't think. Well, I'll disagree a little bit in that we don't care as much as the players. I'll tell you one thing I do, because if you didn't know, I would like for a season to start so I can work. That would be great. And not knowing when I will be able to work is not exactly a fun thing right now during a pandemic, to be honest. And there's a lot of people who are in a worse position than me. There's a lot of people who work game days, and it's everything to them in terms of their revenue for a year. And nobody knows right now. So, yeah, there's a lot of people with their interest here. And no, I can't quantify from a fan's perspective, what that means. Nobody can. We can't quantify our love for a team or our love for a game or our love for a diversion or an activity. There was an interesting article yesterday. I think it was in The Atlantic. Amanda Mull, who went to UGA, wrote it. And she talked about how, the pandemic is teaching us that, we think about close friends, we think about family, we think about those relationships all the time. And it's not really until something like this that we think about those casual friends, those acquaintances, those people that you would see at the stadium. And when I had Falcons season tickets, I looked forward to seeing the guys around us in our section that I never saw outside of those games. I never, had the phone number, never was friends with them on Facebook. I enjoyed showing up, saying, hey, what's going on? How are you? Blah, blah, blah. What do you think about the game today? That kind of stuff. That's been taken away right now. And, yeah, we need that stuff. So it's hard to quantify. It's hard to quantify what it means to fans. But it's real. There is a quantification to it that needs to happen. It's a tough spot. And I just don't want the posturing and the positioning in public to affect the actual negotiation. I hope that everybody's got their big boy and big girl pants on, and they're not letting that stuff affect them. I hope not. It shouldn't. But everybody's human as well. And when some of the stances that have been taken publicly get brought into the boardroom, it can affect these conversations. And I hope it doesn't here. I hope they can just get it done.
On Twitter, a couple of folks have other Thursday thoughts, but sticking specifically to the discussion here in hour number one. Tom Russo says, what I find frustrating is that group of fans who insist this is all on the league and owners, and the players are being totally screwed. The owners are billionaires. They can handle the losses and pay the players, they claim. Clear the air, guys.
Yeah, that's... Not all the owners are billionaires, first off. I mean, even Sam Stejkal's piece at The Athletic, I mean, I thought he made it clear that there were 10 owners who, yeah, they're doing pretty well for themselves. There's 27 teams and more coming. You don't want, 10 owners can handle everything. They're fine, so they shouldn't have to do anything to affect the other 17. What if some can't? What if some owners say, well, I can't do this. I'm out. Mm-hmm. What does that do? That doesn't do anything good. So it's not one-sided to me. It's just not. The players made incredible sacrifices to play last season. They did take a 5% pay cut. It was a 7.5% pay cut in the second half of the season because they were paid in full while there were no games going on. That's a pay cut. That's not making money that you expected to make. They did give up bonuses. It's hard to quantify what was a realistic bonus, what was a long shot bonus, et cetera, et cetera. They gave up bonuses. We also know the other side. I mean, again, you can look at the empty stands and you know that every person that's in there would have spent money, and you don't have that money coming in. So both sides made incredible sacrifices. Both sides gave up things to have a season last year for the good of both sides. They need to do that again, and they need to figure out what those numbers are and what they can both live with going forward. And again, if it means they need to come back to the table in 23, in 24, they need to negotiate that. Because that would be a reasonable expectation is you get through this year, which will be disrupted by the pandemic. You get to next year. Okay. Hopefully it'll be a normal season from day one. I think that's a safe assumption at this point, but we don't know yet. You get through 22, and then you talk. And you say, look, we're in a better position than we thought. Or, no, we're in a worse position than we thought. We need to stay where we are with everything that we've agreed to. Or, hey, we bounced back faster. People wanted to come back in the stadiums faster. People came back in numbers that we didn't expect. And people are more excited than they were because they had that absence of it. We can talk about changing what we agreed to. We appreciate you giving back to us. They need to be realistic. And I know it's hard to do that in these situations because both sides look at the other as the enemy. They need to look at the other side as a partner. Because it's different than other sports in this case are a little bit different just because to me, neither side exists without the other.
Right.
You know, the USL Championship is not going to pay. Let's say MLS disappears and sits out. USL Championship's not going to pay the same level of salary. They can't. They can't afford it. So they can't. That's not going to happen. So there's not equitable jobs out there. It's not like going to a different company to work. There isn't one. Some players will go overseas. Some players will go to other leagues. Yes, not all. There's not jobs for the, 700, 800 players in the league. There's not equivalent jobs out there for all of them. There just isn't. There just isn't. And there's not an equivalent league for fans in this country if teams don't play. They need to be partners. It's the only way it works. So work together. That's all I'm hoping for.
Michael Head says, plus season ticket holders is a part of the discussion. I have over $1,500 invested in this season as usual. I hate the posturing. Get it done. Heck, my wife and I are currently unemployed due to COVID.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are losing things as well due to COVID. We all know this. So that's why this is a little sour, the public posturing side of it. Everybody's affected by this right now, or most people are. maybe, well, your hedge funds maybe weren't before this, but they are right now because of a Reddit board. But anyway, there's a small number of very rich people who have not been affected by this. There's people who have not been affected by this. There's industries that have found ways to grow during the pandemic, and that's amazing. The ingenuity is amazing in some industries, but not everybody. And there's a lot of jobs that aren't happening. There's a lot more people unemployed. There's a lot of people suffering. So the posturing back and forth about pushing the CBA back 2 years or a 5% pay cut or no pay cut or this or that, it's kind of like, yo, this doesn't make us feel any good about anything right now. Could y'all just get it done so we can look forward to games, please? I think there's people out there who are like that, and it's a shame because I don't want to see anybody suffer. But this isn't helping alleviate any of that right now. I hope they can figure it out.
To your point, Tofka's in this morning, and he says the party should just make, quote, extension of the CBA, end quote, and how much extension, end quote, contingent on revenue growths. If MLS booms and exceeds growth expectations, then reduce the CBA extension. If MLS limps a bit, then allow the CBA extension to stand.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, that feels like the reasonable thing here, right? Is we don't know what's going to happen in 21. We don't know what day the fans will be back at full capacity. And it's not even getting to, do the fans want to come back in full capacity yet? That's not even getting into that question. It can't be answered. I'm just talking about when they can actually open the full stadium up. Like, just the ability to do it. We don't know when that is in Atlanta, in Los Angeles. We don't know when that is in Toronto. We don't know when Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver can come back and forth across the border. There's a lot of it we just don't know. So you're trying to figure out the unknown. You're probably going to get it wrong. You're either going to overshoot in trying to be too safe by extending the CBA 2 years if you feel like that's an overshoot. Okay, you're probably going to overshoot on one side, and you're going to undershoot the effect on the other because you don't want to give anything up. I get that. I understand that. But neither side knows what's going to happen in 3 months, let alone the whole season. I think it's safe for both sides to operate under the assumption that 22 will be a normal year in terms of what is available for revenue. You don't know how it will perform, but okay, we'll have full capacity. We'll be able to sell for 34 games. We'll be able to do our sponsorships for 34 games, et cetera, et cetera. With the unknown factor in there, create an opportunity to renegotiate it. Create an opportunity to say, look, if we bounce back, and again, then people have to act in good faith. And that's where the public posturing can hurt that. If people are going to operate in good faith, then create another opportunity, a window in 23 or at the end of 22, end of 23, whatever, to say, how did you bounce back? Did you bounce back enough? Okay, we see the new media rights deal. Hey, it went up. That's great. That's more money coming in. That's good. Do you still need 2 years to recoup? No? Can cut it down to 1? Okay, let's do that because that's good for everybody. That takes people to look at both sides of it instead of yelling back and forth. I hope they'll do it. It's not really how these groups have operated in the past, and that's across all sports in terms of management and players going back and forth. They usually don't do these sorts of things. I'd love it if MLS would be the one to be reasonable about it. From the MLSPA and the MLS, they've got to be reasonable about it.
Nicholas Paul Dunbar is in this morning, and he is the last one currently in the timeline discussing work stoppage and what we're talking about with MLSPA. That's a good. He says it's a good shout on the MLS work stoppage. As a young kid, I just fell out of love with Major League Baseball. Didn't really get back into stickball until the Braves got rolling again. You can't antagonize the other side and think that things are going to go well. MLS and MLSPA have to do better. They're hurting themselves and the most supporters whose passion for the game wanes each day that we don't have a healthy league.
It can. It absolutely can. And it's harder to come back. That's something that TV ratings show across any entertainment platform. The ratings will continue to rise to a point when even the product's not great. And when they start to fall, it's harder to get people back than it is to get them the first time. Once people stick, they'll stick. But when you lose them, it's very hard. When you see a TV show or you see, I think of it in pro wrestling terms a lot of times. When you saw ratings fall, like dramatically fall, and we're talking like WCW fall. Like they didn't come back. Like they were done. People left. They were gone. They weren't coming back to the game. They weren't coming back to that program. With soccer, it's kind of in that vein because if you are a fan of MLS and you've become invested and you're emotionally invested and you watch all the games on TV, if it goes away, you can watch Liga MX, you can watch the Premier League, you can watch the Argentine First Division, you can watch the French League, you can watch Serie A, you can watch the Bundesliga, you can watch the Premier League. You might put that time and emotional capital into another league, and then it's harder for MLS to get you back because you've already left, you're hooked on something else. You can't afford for that to happen right now. Not with a World Cup coming, not with this league where it is right now, not that it started to turn the corner, all those things. Neither side will benefit from that. I know we've talked about this before. We'll probably have to talk about it more. I really hope that both sides can be the bigger people here and get this done because it's going to take both of them to do it. It's not one side or the other's complete fault here. And that's a very small way of looking at it. They need to work together. They need to get it done. The public posturing, I don't think helps. If it is truly for positioning, fine. You've laid out your positions. If this is a real deadline or a flexi deadline, I don't know. But there's some kind of a deadline at midnight. I hope we don't go past that. Get it done. Figure out what's best for the game and both sides and move forward because you need each other to survive. And everybody else needs you to get this right because there's a lot of people who are waiting for answers from you guys. Y'all hold the cards. MLSPA and MLS. Y'all hold the cards. We don't. We're just waiting for you to get it done. So get it done, please, for everybody's benefit. All right. All of that, which is never fun to talk about, has made it less fun because we have missed our 10 o'clock time frame. People are waiting. They've got scorecards out. They're skeptical of John's performance today because of the tinfoil hat at the beginning of the show. We will see if that affects his read as he tells us about our good friend, Steve Apolinski.
Apolinski & Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one phone call that you need to make. There's only one communication that you need to make, however you communicate with folks on a daily basis, and it is checking out Apolinski & Associates, LLC. How do you do it? A couple different ways. You can pick up the phone, give them a call, get a free consultation, 404-377-9191, or shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com, or you can use the World Wide Web in all of its glory, large device or small. Type in aa-legal.com, hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, depending on the size of your device. It advances to the home screen for Apolinski & Associates, LLC, low right-hand corner, 24/7, 365 and a quarter. A pop-up window pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up. Thank you, Chris Hutchison, for that as always. You can get your questions answered that way as well, if you so choose. So it's phone, it's email, it's pop-up window on the website. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama, recognized as legal by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there is only one communication that you need to make, and it is with Apolinski & Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com.
All right, let's see how that went. People are in bad moods because of the MLS situation, so it's going to affect your grading, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I figured as much, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. You had to follow up on all that. It's not good. Audio got a little weird, too. Sorry about that. Don't know what the bandwidth issue was on that. That's not John's fault. Don't
probably the tinfoil.
Probably. You probably got it too close to your antenna that's getting your internet into your place.
True.
Let's see what we have. Chiefs coach Steve. Those Columbia School of Broadcasting classes are paying off for you, John. 8.8.
Wow.
That's pretty good. 5, 6. Oh, Domer went with the evil 6.66. Katie 4, a little choppy with the audio. That's not his part. Give him a point back, Katie. That's not his fault. Sean, -1 fast out of the gate, +1 off script, but I liked it. -1 bad audio. -1 Chris H late thanks. -1 video froze. That's on John. -1 eye roll. 5.2.
Okay.
7. 6.5, 8.5, 6, not as good as yesterday.
Okay.
10, Ragamuffin gives you a 10.
So I shouldn't be topical with any of my references and should just go blow through the read as quickly as possible?
No, I think people like the topical references. I think that was good. Ragamuffin gave you 10. If GameStop can be overhyped, why can't John?
There you go. Actually, wouldn't I be more AMC movie theater than GameStop?
Probably. I don't know if any hedge funds are going to be affected by overhyping John, but, go for it. Chris Ashley, +2, strong start. +3, smooth recitation of the phone number. -1, audio cutout. That's not his fault. I'm going to give that back to him. -1, shaking the pen at us. Yeah,
I always shake
fault.
the pen.
-2, pen slash. So 6.4, I'm going to upgrade that to a 7.4 because the audio issue wasn't John's fault, I don't think. Probably was, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Right. Soccer for Good OG, 5.89, middling, 7. Jason Nix wants a vanilla read one day.
So basically read it like Belichick?
I guess, yeah. Pacine says he's watching on the computer for the first time. The stream is 10 seconds ahead of the app stream. So it goes to Twitch first and then goes to the app. Oh. Yeah, I could see that. I would think it'd be the other way because of audio, video. Usually pure audio is faster, but it's where they're bouncing to from here. So weird. Pacine says this feels like I'm living in the future.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
So can you tell us what's going to happen with lottery numbers?
I don't think he's got that feed 10 seconds ahead, but then I wouldn't have time to actually go to the store to buy it if it's only 10 seconds ahead, so it wouldn't really help that much. Let's see. Non-standard listener was not put off. 8 out of 10. Not bad.
Wow.
Not bad.
Well, hello, non-standard listener.
Not bad. Oh, the Twitch website is ahead of the Twitch app. Oh, there you go, Alex. Thank you. Okay, so that makes a little more sense. Yeah, I can absolutely see that because it's not bouncing somewhere else. Okay, got it. Makes sense. All right. We are going to start our number 2 plus 14 with our question from intern Niall, who is working very hard, starting his podcasting internships. He's very starting his writing internships. Really good stuff. And he's thinking about the game in some different ways, which I like. And that's, if you've ever listened to the show, some of you have listened to it before, we talk about getting people thinking about the game in different ways. Yes, I have my opinions, but I want you guys to think. I try to open doors as much as possible. So Niall was thinking about Borussia Dortmund after our conversation yesterday about how important it is for them to get to the Champions League. Because if they don't, financially, they might have to sell a lot of people. They will, and they are a selling club. They have sold many, many times, and they will sell again. But it's going to be accelerated. It's not just going to be the one good player going to Bayern Munich, which is what usually happens to Dortmund. It's going to be maybe Jadon Sancho, Gio Reyna, and more. Or it's going to be Erling Haaland being sold a year earlier than they want. I think they know he's gone at the end of 21-22. They'd like to keep him for another season. But they're going to need money. They're 7th in the Bundesliga right now. And Niall asks, are they in trouble? They've only won 9 of their 18 matches that they played so far. It's Sancho, it's Reyna, it's Rafael Guerrero, who could be up for sale if they don't qualify for Champions League. They are not good defensively. 26 goals conceded in their last 35 games. And it doesn't get better for them. What they have coming up, Bayern, Frankfurt, Wolfsburg, Leipzig, Leverkusen. That's in their remaining 16 games of the season, they've got all of them coming. You don't have an experienced manager either. Remember, they fired their manager. It's Aiden Terzic who is in charge. It hasn't been great under him. They're scoring some goals. They've got 35 goals scored in the 18 games played. But that defense is a problem. Are they in trouble? And we'll take it a step further because Gio Reyna is involved in this. Is Dortmund's trouble a bad thing for Gio Reyna if they have to sell him early? Is that going to negatively affect Gio Reyna and the U.S. men's national team? So your question is, does Borussia Dortmund qualify for the Champions League for next season? And if they don't, is it a good or a bad thing for the U.S. men's national team that Gio Reyna might have to be sold? That's where it stands. Wow, Chara, see, this is the problem for a situation of Borussia Dortmund. What they have said, and of course this can change. This, again, it's back to public posturing, right? They have said that if they don't qualify, they would not sell Erling Haaland. That's what they've said. He would be untouchable, but everybody else would be up for sale, including Sancho, Reina, and Guerrero. I think it would be, and this is me talking, not Dortmund, I think it would be one or the other. I think if they got $100 million for Erling Haaland next year, they would keep the other guys. I don't think it will be Haaland and then this guy and then this guy and then this guy, because they've got to be competitive next year. Like that's the balancing act here, right? And that's when the argument in the MLS conversation is, well, just sell guys. If you need to recoup money, just sell a bunch of players. Well, if you put a bad product on the field because you sold a bunch of players, you're not long-term helping yourself. You don't want to get into Barcelona's situation where they don't have choices. Like they can't pay things. Dortmund is trying not to get there. But if they miss out on Champions League in 1 year, they don't want to gut the team either way to where they can't qualify another time the following year. So it's a balancing act. It's tough. I think they're saying it's one or the other, and I tend to believe them. Could it be Haaland and Guerrero? Sure. But I think if they sold Haaland, they would not sell Sancho and Reina because you'd need them desperately. But if they can package sales for Sancho and Reina and Guerrero, they would keep Haaland and maybe still be competitive enough to get back into the Champions League. It's one or the other. That's what they're saying, and I think it's true. Let's see what we have on the Twitch pitch in addition to this. Ragamuffin says, who is this Niall guy? You missed him. Niall was hanging out in the Twitch pitch. He said hello.
So my first question for you, as I post intern Niles questions of the day, how is intern Niles' name spelled?
Nyle. That is intern Nile.
Thank you.
He does truly exist, Ragamuffin. He's a high school student who is taking some time as an internship, and we've had to get really creative in virtual internship land because it's not like a normal internship. So being a virtual show kind of helps with that, right? Because we can all do everything virtually, including internships. But it's been a lot of fun talking with Niall and talking about, kind of what we do and what the show is and what I do in broadcasting and trying to plant some seeds and get things moving along for things he's thinking about in his career. So
all right. So here's my phraseology for intern Niles QODs.
Okay.
QSOD. Will Dortmund make UCL this season, and if they don't, will it affect Gio Reyna's value on the open market? Is that a fair?
No, the second part I want you to tweak it because the second part I want it to be, if they have to sell Gio Reyna, is this a good or bad thing for the U.S. men's national team? Okay. I'm adding that part on. Niall brought up the Dortmund part and Gio Reyna. I'm adding the U.S. men's national team hook to it.
Okay. So
increasing the engagement, at least I'm trying to.
All right. So if they have to sell Gio Reyna, how would you phrase?
Is that good or bad for the U.S. men's national team?
Okay. There we go. Okay.
Done. All right. Niall exists. He's in the Twitch pitch. There we go. Let's see what we got here. Bernd, who is our Bundesliga correspondent. I think Dortmund will be fine. They can sell Haaland for over $100 million. I agree. And Sancho, Reina for more than $50 million each. It'd be huge. That balances a lot of deficits. And then they can reload. Their scouting is good enough. The real issue is they need to unload some old underperformers like Bjerke, Royce, etc. That's where it gets hard, right? And that's probably why those names haven't come up, because you can't unload them because there's no buyers. People are going to want Haaland. People are going to want Sancho. People are going to want Reina. People are going to want Guerrero. There's probably a few more. But you got to find that balancing act because, you can balance the books by selling all of them, and then you go reload. With a new manager coming in, maybe that's the route you want to go. You're going to have to spend properly. It's riskier. The more you have to reload, the more players that you sell, and the more new faces you bring in, the more risk you invite. Because every sale can be great on paper and not work out. And some teams have to do that, and some teams don't. And I think you want to avoid it where you can. Sometimes you can't. We'll see. All I'm very curious about Dortmund. I don't think they qualify for Champions League. I don't see that happening, no. And I think they're going to have to sell. But I think they're going to be looking for about $100 million either way. And if that's all on Erling Haaland, okay. If it's Sancho, Reina, Guerrero that gets you to that $100 million or maybe a little bit more, okay. I think it's one or the other because you're going to need one or the other to be part of the rebuild. If you go all in and sell all of it, sure, you could get around $200 million, but then that's 4 big players that you're going to have to replace. Right. And we'll have to see if they can pull that off.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the schedule, and I think that they're going to have to make some hay in the early part of it, even though you've got schedule compression with DFB Pokal and Champions League and things like that. Here's your schedule in Bundesliga for Dortmund. Augsburg, then you go into the DFB Pokal, come back out, Freiburg, Hoffenheim, Champions League, quick turn to Schalke, Arminia Bielefeld. Then you've got Bayern and the second leg for Sevilla before Hertha Berlin and Cologne, and that gets you through March. You got to make your hay by the end of February for me. Because of all of those manageable matches, I think that you've got Augsburg, Freiburg, Schalke, and Arminia Bielefeld. You've got to get that done.
So are you sending the reserves to play Sevilla?
I think so.
I think you have to. I don't think you want more Europa League games. You got to focus on league because you've got to get in the top 4. I would, and you hate to be in that situation if you're a proud club like Dortmund. I think you have to. First leg's at Sevilla. I think you send your guys who aren't going to play the game before, the game after, if you can do it. If you can field a complete second choice, you do it in that game at Sevilla. If, and this is a big if you get out of there with a manageable result, and if you're in a position coming after the Bayern game and before the Hertha game, where you play Sevilla in your home leg, the second leg, if you have a chance to go for it, you can make that decision on March 9th. But I think you have to punt at least the first leg.
Yeah.
And go with a second choice. So it's tough. I mean, I think you just have to get top 4. It's just because of the financials. And I'm wondering what other leagues will see a team in this situation where they're going to have to make that decision. Do we see it in England with all the teams like right around that level? Are you going to see some that have to sell out to try to get into the top 4 because of what it could mean for them in the summer with a massive clearinghouse sale? Maybe. I mean, I think the teams that are in this conversation are okay with not having to go clearinghouse in the summer in England, but I don't know if anybody is like 100% dependent on it. Chelsea's got money. They'll be okay.
Right. Everton's in 7th with 2 matches in hand.
I think Everton's ahead of where they thought they would be, so I don't think they'd have to go clearinghouse on it.
Tottenham is in 6th with 2 matches in hand.
They're tougher just because of the stadium component, too. I mean, they just spent on a new stadium. They're going to be in a tougher financial spot. I don't know if that's clearinghouse style in the summer or not. They've got a few players that I think they can sell in the summer, and it's not going to affect the team as much. They've got some surplus guys.
Liverpool 5th with a match in hand.
They won't have to go clearinghouse.
West Ham is 4th at 20 games.
They're way ahead of where they thought they would be, in my opinion.
Leicester 3rd at 20 matches.
Leicester hasn't overextended themselves.
Manchester United 2nd at 20 matches.
United and City don't have to do it. Neither one would have to do it. So, I mean, maybe Tottenham because of what they spent on the stadium, but I don't think they're in as bad of a spot as Dortmund. Dortmund's only 3 points out.
Mm-hmm.
But
and that's why I said you got to make your hay in those matches in and around before you get into Champions League with Sevilla.
Yeah, you're going to have to. I don't think they pull it off. I don't. I think that defense is a little bit too leaky to pull it off. But Mönchengladbach and Frankfurt's defenses aren't much better ahead of them. They're pretty similar in terms of goal differential. To get into the top 4, though, it's a little bit different class. I mean, Bayern has given up 25 goals, but they've scored 53. So, yeah, you can afford to do that. Speaking of Bayern, interesting report came out overnight out of Germany on Bayern Munich. According to Sport Bild, the future of Hansi Flick is undecided. he could depart after this season. Now, he's under contract through 23. This is all according to Sport Bild in Germany. But Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, the CEO, is stepping down from his role at the end of the year. Flick is worried about the working conditions once Rummenigge resigns. According to the report, Flick values the working conditions and backing of his ideas more than the length of the contract. Tensions between Flick and the sporting director currently at the club have come up after Bayern failed to strengthen their squad in the summer transfer window. The guys they brought in haven't really been a good fit. Flick also remains in contact with the DFB and is considered a successor to Jogi Löw. And I think this factors into it. Should the German national team head coach step down from his role after the European Championship, and I don't think he would step down, I think he would have to be pushed out of the role, Flick would be high on the list of candidates and would be the obvious choice. I know they think they can get Jurgen Klopp next. If you got to make a move on Jogi Löw, it seems like it's Hansi Flick that would be next. And that's kind of crazy to me. I mean, Flick was the interim when they made their change, and he took the job and did everything you could possibly do with it last year. It's crazy that he would want to maybe go at the end of this year, but if he's worried about those changes with Rummenigge leaving, and the Germany job could be the plan B for him, then I get it.
No, absolutely. And if right now, if you don't think that you would have the backing for any of your thought pattern when it comes to the future and what you think of the future of the club, then I could certainly see him double clutching on the idea of hanging around. Definitely.
It's a weird one. It's a very strange one. But I could see it. One Atlanta United update, and this is from the Instagram stalkers out there. Rocco Rios Novo, remember him? The Argentina U20 goalkeeper at Lanús, born in Los Angeles. It appears he is coming to Atlanta United on loan. He posted some photos on Instagram indicating he was U.S. bound. Mundo Granate, which is a Lanús website, said that Atlanta United have signed Argentina U20 international goalkeeper Rocco Rios Novo on loan with a $3 million purchase option.
Most people pay way too much to find.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good job, John. Novo has American citizenship because he was born in Los Angeles, so he would not take up an international slot. Brilliant. You get a chance to see him for a year. I'd assume he'd probably play a little bit more for the twos, but he could get some games with the first team as well if he's coming to the first team. That's one question, is he coming to take that third roster spot for a goalkeeper on the first team roster? He would probably go into a supplemental roster spot, so that's good that he wouldn't take up cap space or anything like that. He could play for the twos, or is he going to the twos directly like Eric Lopez did, where then he couldn't go up to the ones? That's where it gets weird. But it sounds like he's going to the first team and then would be able to be loaned to the twos to play some games here and there when he needs it. So I love it. I love it. You get to look for a year and $3 million for a purchase option for a 19-year-old goalkeeper if you believe he's the future. It's not crazy, especially a domestic goalkeeper who can grow into the job, because there wouldn't be an immediate need for him to step in and play day one, and be the guy for 34 games in a regular season day one. He'd have time to grow into it because you have a veteran like Brad Kazan in place.
A couple of folks have linked to stuff from Joe Prince Wright at NBC Sports this morning. Apparently, DeAndre Yedlin is close to completion for a move to Galatasaray, fallen down the pecking order at Newcastle recent months, out of contract this summer. So, according to Turkish outlet Assist Analyse, Galatasaray set to announce the signing in the next few days with personal terms agreed.
Yeah, the reporting on Yedlin that I had coming into this was the issue. It's not as simple as Galatasaray saying, yeah, we like you, we're going to sign you. He's out of contract in the summer. We know that much. Sorry, Jason. The loan for Novo would be 1 year with a purchase option at the end of it. Yedlin, it sounds like Galatasaray has agreed to terms for him for a new deal, which you can do. He's out of contract in the summer. It's a pre-contract. He would join them in the summer, unless he goes now, which, according to the reporting that I had, they're open to bringing him in for a small fee right now, paying a transfer fee to get him for 6 months, and then he signs his new contract. But Newcastle needs a reinforcement before the end of the window to let him go now. And Newcastle are looking at the loan market. Hamza Choudhury from Leicester is one possible option. Newcastle's got to get a replacement to let Yedlin go now. Yedlin otherwise will have to play out his contract at Newcastle and then go in the summer. That's where it sounds like everything is falling right now. So we'll see.
Tafka, about intern Niles' question of the day, he says, you can't know about Gio. He could wind up at a really great spot with a shrug shoulders emoji. Could be an awful spot, no way to know. But he also warns me to be careful with the intern Niles stuff. Inter Milan may come and gripe because it sounds like Inter Niles.
Oh, yeah, you got to be careful with that. You got to make sure you're phrasing everything properly. That's true.
Yes.
Walchara asked about the rumors on Franco Escobar, which are not really rumors. Man, this thing's gotten twisted so far out of shape. Felipe Cardenas at The Athletic wrote yesterday that Atlanta United is, according to his sources, open to offers for Franco Escobar. They're not looking to move him within the league, but they're open to offers. There's no offers that I've read about. There's nothing I've seen yet. I would assume that there have been because he's a good player and people make offers for good players. Doesn't mean they get accepted, doesn't mean they're realistic, doesn't mean they're even talked about. There hasn't been, like there is with Eric Remedi, conversation in the media in Argentina about a move for Escobar. I think the clubs that would probably be willing to pay a transfer fee for him at this stage, because I believe he's got at least a year on his contract left, would be a Boca, would be a River. Boca's looking at bringing in Marcos Rojo. River is talking about a defender from Nacional in Uruguay. I don't know if there's anybody else who would have the money to pay to make it worthwhile. The other thing that I think needs to be understood too is, if Franco wants to leave at this point because he's 25, if he wants to go explore an opportunity somewhere else, then that happens. And we don't know any of that stuff. I don't think Felipe's report was in any way insinuating that a move is imminent. I think you're listening to offers because that's what you do. You always listen to offers. We'll see if an offer comes up and gets talked about publicly that is worthwhile or a reasonable landing spot. The Remedi situation is different in that it seems like he is in the last 6 months of his deal. Maybe it's longer. Maybe it is 12 months. But he came in midseason in 2018. The reporting that I have seen on his deal was a 3-year deal, which would be up in the midseason in 21. Also, there have been concrete rumors about him going to Independiente, which when you start to, does that make sense? It does, because you have his former manager from Bonfield there and bringing in a player that is familiar with him. There's been talk about other potential players that Independiente is looking at as well, so it's not anything like a slam dunk, but this is the business, We talk about this with every other team in the world. I don't know why it's so upsetting when it comes up about Atlanta United that people could be on the move. That's what the transfer window is. You have to make these decisions. And in these two cases, personally, I think Remedi might be surplus because of the options you have in midfield. And especially if Franco Ibarra comes in from Argentinos Juniors, then it's even more crowded in that midfield. So if he wants to play consistently, he probably needs to move elsewhere, because I don't know if a new deal would be coming for him. In terms of Escobar, I'd love to see him sign a long-term deal because I can see him as a future captain. I absolutely can. The question would be, is the offer too good to pass up if it materializes again? And what does the player want to do? Does he want to stay here long-term and be that guy who's a long-term player here, like a Diego Valeri in Portland? Or does he want to go take an opportunity at 25 to play elsewhere? We don't know that. Franco hasn't said anything. So, it's that time you get to at the end of a contract where you're in that window of a year left and you're weighing long-term deal, commit the future here, or time to go and time to look at other places, with the value that the player could have on the market. And right now the market is really hard to predict. Really, really hard to predict. So, don't know. I mean, could a Brazilian club come in? Sure. They've done pretty well with their finances. Palmeiras is talking about a player like Valentin Castellanos. If they're talking about players like Castellanos, that level, yeah, Escobar's absolutely at that level. Could there be a Brazilian team that comes in with a clear check for a good bit of money that would be more than you would think you would get, then maybe we're having a different conversation. I'd love to see Escobar here long term. I would. I think he's the kind of guy that you want. But if the money is too good to pass up, that's a business. And that's what's hard, but it is a business. And every team in the world is in this. We just talked about Dortmund. Do they want to sell Gio Reyna? No. They don't want to sell a teenage talent like that. They don't want to get rid of him now. Might they have to? Yeah. Atlanta's not quite in that situation, but even Dortmund, you don't want to get rid of Haaland. You'd like to have him another year. Somebody comes in with $100 million, you're going to say bye.
Uh-huh.
It's how it is. So if the money comes in and it's too good and the player wants to move, it's time to shake hands and move on. And that could happen here. There's just no way to know. I didn't take Felipe's tweet as a move is imminent. I took it as you're listening to offers because I think you're in the last year of the deal, and it's just where it stands. That's where I'm at on it anyway. That's my thought.
I'm with you.
I think then, of course, Alex Bassine, I want whatever Gabby wants, and I want it today. He's going to have his opinions on it, but he's not driving the business side either. He's going to give his input, and I think he's going to be very clear in his input. Maybe that was a problem with Frank de Boer. I don't know. He's going to be very clear in what he wants, what kinds of player he wants, and probably players that he's familiar with that he wants. Alessandro Lopez would make total sense as one of those kinds of signings. He's also evaluated the roster, and he's going to give guidance in players that he could live without, and in players that he thinks are untouchable for him, or players that he thinks maybe, if they're not untouchable, they're very, very close to untouchable unless the dollar figure that comes in is insane, and that can happen. That's where we are. That's the game. That's what happens. Gabby's not out there negotiating these deals, but yeah, his input is welcomed, I think. So this is where you're at. And does that mean you could have more moves? Yeah, you could. You absolutely could.
A couple of tie-in questions from Ezra Packham and a separate topic this morning in Thursday Thoughts. On Escobar, he has a question at the end of his first statement. He says, we all saw the front office being open to a move. This is sad to hear because I love that guy. I think he has a huge season ahead of him. His question.
I agree.
Do you think he's a necessity for next year under Heinze?
No, I don't, because of what you already have in place, assuming you wouldn't go out and replace the player. And if Escobar was to go, let's say a club that, let's say a Boca or a River comes in with $5 million. It's going to be hard for him to turn down, let alone the club. Say that happens. Okay. Happy for him. Cool. What do? You've got Robinson, you've got Meza, you've got Walks at center back, you've got Campbell, you've got Efrain Morales, young, not ready yet, I don't think. You're good. Could you decide, you know what, I need somebody who has a different characteristic than Walks or Meza who can play right now. You got Josh Bauer too, but he's got to earn a contract. Sure, you could go out and then take some of that money and go out into the market. You got cap space to worry about, and that's always a challenge. You'd love to make enough on a deal if you do sell a player to have more cap space to work with on the other side of the deal. And I think you could with Franco. I think you got him at a good price. He wasn't on a huge salary. I think you'll recoup enough of that if the offer is good enough and be able to increase your cap. Then you could spend more money on the replacement. And that could be part of the conversation with all of this. I don't think he is essential that you cannot be successful if you were to move him, because I think you could either get a replacement or live with what you have based off how we think this team is going to play in 2021.
Rocco Rios Novo on that topic. Ezra asked, do you think he'd come to America, learn from Goose, and eventually become a starter, or would we sell him young?
You could do either, and that's the thing that's impossible to predict is the selling part at the other side. But could he come in and be a starter? Yeah. Just the fact that he's the Argentine U20 goalkeeper would project you to seeing him as a potential starter in MLS. And by the way, he could, I believe, with FIFA rules, change his national team to the U.S. if he wanted to do that. And if he can perform at that level, then maybe we're having a different conversation, just saying. You'd love it. You'd love it if you could bring him in on a loan, get a look. You say $3 million's a good deal. We like it. We're gonna keep him. We're gonna do the purchase, and we're gonna groom him to be our next guy. And you've still got competition there. You've got Garces at UCLA. You've got Reyes coming up in your academy right now, is already playing some games for the twos. You've got Lundgaard, who is a little bit older but still developing. You've got a lot of good competition. If he can prove it this year that he's worth that transfer fee, he could absolutely be the number one in a couple of years. Definitely could be that. And then everything, all bets are off in terms of what happens next. If the performances are great, we saw it with Zach Steffen, went to Manchester City. And he's outperforming what I thought he would be at Manchester City right now. It can happen. So, sure, both are possible. Nothing else, John? You're just going to stare at me?
Well, it froze for a second, so now I'm back. Okay. Ezra's third thought, and we've had a couple of other folks jump back in the queue.
That's what I thought. That's why I was like, why are you staring at me? What'd I do?
It locked. Ezra, final thought on kit leaks. I'm not sure if you've already talked about it, but what do you think? I saw a later leak that made me like it more because it had thicker stripes down the middle, and I actually really liked that one. What do you think?
We haven't seen a leak, first off. We've seen mock-ups.
Yeah.
Off of leaked ideas, I think is what's out there. So keep that in mind. I don't hate the concept. I know a lot of people do. I don't hate the concept at all. I want to see it. And I want to see what it would be paired with. Is it black shorts? Is it black socks? Is it red shorts and black socks? Is it red socks? I don't know. I'd love to see what the whole kit looks like. You're going to have to play with different versions of a striped kit. You can't just keep doing the same one over and over and over again because you have to sell them. It's part of the game. You got to sell these kits, so you got to come up with different things. I would want to see it in real life before I have a true judgment of it because I felt that way even about the second home kit. When pictures came out, I was kind of like, eh. And when the whole kit came out and they wore it, I loved it. So I want to see the whole package. We haven't even seen a real picture of it yet, so we can't even really judge because these are mock-ups of ideas at this point.
Mateo is asking if he's allowed to make Niall get him coffee.
No, Mateo, that's not how you treat your other interns. You are a full-time employee now for no money because we don't have any extra money to give you, but you're an employee, and you can't treat interns that way, Mateo. Come on. It's virtual coffee anyway, and I don't know if that's any good.
Yeah. Tafka on the Escobar situation, he says it's a big difference between open to offers and looking to move a player. The front office knows Franco is the heart of the club, but they can't be unfair if a great offer comes that would entice Franco to leave or would see a huge transfer fee. Very few, if any, players are untouchable for a front office.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, all of that is absolutely valid. You have to be willing to listen because you never know what can happen with that. Somebody comes in, like we said, if it's Boca, if it's River, and they come in with $5 million and it's a move the player wants, you make the player happy, you take that money that you didn't expect and you go and you reinvest it in the next guy, and maybe you can be even better. Maybe you get the next Franco Escobar. Maybe you get somebody with some different characteristics and it makes your team better. You have to be willing to make those moves when the time is right. If you hold on to guys for too long because of sentimentality, you're not going to win trophies on a regular basis. You have to get the moves right. Don't get me wrong. You got to make the right signings, and you've got to have the right coaches to develop those players. You've got to do things. It's not just, sell a player, bring in a new player. Cool, everything's good. That's why you have a big staff. That's why you have a lot of evaluation going on. That's why you have a lot of development going on. But, yeah, you have to be willing to make those moves when the time is right. I think the New England Patriots have shown you that in a cap league. How, for the longest time, and they benefited from having, one of the best quarterbacks of all time to build around, but they were willing to make the unpopular move when they needed to make it and reload, and they nailed it for a longer period of time than anybody would have ever expected. Let's see if Atlanta United can be a team that can do that. When the time comes, make the right move, the player's happy, the word is good about what the club did for the player, and you move on to the next player, and you develop them, and you just keep growing. We'll see.
One more thought from Tafka, and the Airborne DJ has another couple of ideas here. Tafka says, how do we feel about the GAM return on player sales being phrased as follows? Up to $1 million after recouping costs if possible, same as it is now, and then 10% GAM return on remaining profit.
As like a new rule change? That would make sense. Yeah, that's fine. I think you should be able to add more than some arbitrary amount if you make more of a profit. I'm definitely down with that idea. I would even be willing to include non-homegrown players under a certain age that you brought in and sell under a certain age, that you get 100% of the profit back, and you can convert more than $1 million into GAM, those kinds of things. I'm down for expanding that, because you have to give the incentives to buy and sell. You have to give those incentives to the teams. And if the incentive becomes GAM that increases your cap to be able to spend more on your roster, cool. Because then if you are doing the market right, if you are buying players, selling them for profits, if you're developing players, selling them for good amounts, you are creating an advantage for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's what you're looking for in a cap league. Good. Because it's earned advantage. It's not just, this team has more money so they can just spend more. It's saying, okay, Dallas, you developed Brian Reynolds. You sold him for this amount. You should be rewarded for that. You can have more than $1 million in GAM in your cap going forward because of what you did. Cool. That bridges the gap between Dallas's ownership and other teams' ownerships. These are good things. It's rewarding a good performance. So yeah, I'm in with all of that, kind of just looking from a big picture standpoint. Yeah, create an opportunity for teams to make more in GAM from transfers because it'll incentivize it more. I'm down.
The Airborne DJ says, our fan base is young and many don't get how football works. The players always move unless you're one of the few final destination clubs in the world. Speaking of, what are those? PSG, Juve, Real Madrid, Barca, Bayern. He's not sure about anyone in the Premier League. Even Manchester United and Liverpool, etc., sell players to other big clubs. Who's on your list of final destination clubs?
I think even all of those clubs will sell when the time is right, as we're seeing. Maybe it's right now just because of the situation that we're in. But, yeah, I mean, even those will have to move players onto other big clubs. That'll happen. Or you'll bring somebody in who didn't live up to that club, and they'll go to a little bit smaller club. That'll happen too. Those are the big ones. If you get a chance to go to PSG, Juve, Madrid, Barca, Bayern, Manchester United, Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, and maybe Arsenal and Tottenham. Like, if you go to those clubs, you're not looking to move up. If you go to those clubs, you're happy to stick. But those clubs still have to look at sales too. I mean, Tottenham and Arsenal at the lower tier of it, yeah, they'd have to. Liverpool does. Manchester United does. Like, yeah, they've got to look too. But you just don't see a lot of players stay anywhere for any extended period of time. It does happen from time to time, but players come and go. And in MLS, the way the league is structured, even now, before the rule changes that Tafka's proposed and I said I'd be down with, even before that, you are incentivized to sell players for profit because you get more cap space. It's GAM. It's not exactly cap space, I know. You get more room to make your roster better if you are managing the market well. So you're incentivized to do it. So you have to do it. You want to continue to build a better roster. You want more cap space to do it. You have to sell. It's just the nature of it. And the players, outside of going to one of these clubs, and for a lot of Argentine players, going to Boca or River would be that. For Brazilian players who maybe aren't at that level to go overseas, a Palmeiras. There's clubs that are like that domestically, sure, for people, but players are looking to always move up too. And players are also looking for new challenges. And for players in this hemisphere, if they get the opportunity to go to Europe, it's hard to turn down. For some, even to a potentially lesser tier club or league, but to go to Europe, it's a big deal. So that factors into it as well. It is the nature of it. Players will come and go, and that's part of it. And you follow them where they go, and you're able to keep up with them where they go, and maybe you have a new team to root for.
We are officially caught up on the Twitters, sir.
All right. I will catch up on the Twitch pitch a little bit here. Jason Nix, good point. Atlanta United exercised an option at the end of 2020 for Franco. We don't know if there's another option past it. Sometimes there is. Sometimes, and there's been a lot of signings this year that have borne this out. Players will sign for a certain amount of years, and then there are 2 options. We don't know if there is another option beyond this year on Franco. If he's going into the last year of his deal, you have to listen to offers. Even with another option, because it's not a guaranteed amount, you have to make a decision at that point. You probably would if the player's an asset and you could sell them. But, yeah, you've got to listen. You've just got to listen to offers and be ready to make one if the time is right. But the option was picked up at the end of 2020 for this year. We don't know if there's any more past that. DK says Franco may want a nice raise on his next contract, and ATL may not be wanting to pay it. That happens. It does. I mean, if he wants twice as much and you're like, that might be too much, that happens. You might not be able to afford it because of the cap. We know that came into the equation with some of the moves at the end of 19. You do have to balance the cap, too. So those are parts that we don't know to the equation. It's like we have A. We know what the value is for A in the equation here if we're doing algebra. We don't know B, C, D, and E yet. And we're guessing. So we have a lot of variables that we don't have answers to. Let's see what else we got on the Twitch pitch. Alex Bassine, I really hope Franco stays, and I hope at center back. Check for me. I am in. Chris Ashley says, in a post-LGP world, I have lived on Franco's passion. I need that. Yeah, I'm in. If Franco Ibarra comes in, I think he's got a lot of that passion, too. Maybe he becomes that guy. Alex Bassine says, unless Gabby doesn't want that, then I want whatever he wants. But I hope he wants what I want. That sounds like being a fan. That kind of encapsulates everything of being a fan, yes. 3TH says, I think if you're where Escobar is and have a year on your contract left, that both sides would want to put out some feelers and listen to offers, if only so they have some info on value to go into negotiations to re-sign. That is a very balanced, measured statement, 3TH, and that is perfect because that is very accurate. Captain Ragamuffin says, Gabby wants a 3-hour show. Gabby's not listening to this show. He doesn't want to listen to us. And no, he doesn't want a 3-hour show. No, you guys are wrong. Cesar Luis Merlo did not release a bomba about reporting a 3-hour show. That is not true at all. Uncle No Pocket says, I hope Gabby wants a CDM, a number 6 or a number 5 in Argentina. I think he does too. I'm pretty sure that he does, Unc. I'm with you on that. Merlo has a lot of followers, so he's valid, but not this Merlo, Alex Bassine. You guys are creating false rumors. You're creating fake news out there.
Or is that bombas?
Fake bombas is what you're creating. Let's see. Sam Williamson says Gabby wants Pedro de la Vega. I hope he does. I hope you can get him. I don't think Lanús wants to give him up just yet, though. Give him another year. That seems to be the way it goes. Atlanta United brings in a Lanús player. He gets replaced. That player gets a couple of years. Then that player gets sold by Atlanta. Then you bring in another Lanús player to replace that player, and there you go. So, yes, Pedro de la Vega in maybe another year. I'm down with this idea, Sam Williamson. I like Pedro de la Vega. Let's see. Fake bombas. Lots of talk about fake bombas. Burned says Escobar's value is probably highest in MLS, maybe 600,000 to 800,000. I think it's more than that. I really do. I think it's more than that outside the league too. It's just so hard to predict the market right now. But Felipe's report or his tweet, it wasn't a full report. I mean, it was a tweet. It was one tweet. His tweet said that they're not listening to offers from within the league, which makes sense. I don't think you want him to go elsewhere in the league if you can help it. I don't know if he would want to go elsewhere in the league, to be perfectly honest. He might have said, I don't want to even listen to offers from inside the league. For staying in the league, I'm happy here. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of pieces to it. Walchara says, also, isn't that other center back leaving? That rumor came up like in November on Fernando Meza, and then nothing ever happened. And Liga MX has already started, and their window closes here in a couple of days, and there's been no more talk about it. So gotta not mix up the old rumors, because then it can get really confusing. I haven't seen anything on Meza in a long time. Doesn't mean something doesn't happen, but no, there's been no talk about it for a long time. Sam Williamson's already predicting the cryptic tweets from Darren about Novo. We'll see where that goes. Four-Card asks, why hasn't Alec Can drawn interest from Nashville, Miami, or Austin, or other MLS teams? I'd thought he'd be gone by now and we'd get something for him. I think he can be a starter in this league. I do. I don't know if he would be interested in going somewhere else to be a backup because he's at home. You know, like This is his hometown. If he was going somewhere else to be a starter, different conversation. Going to be a backup, no. And the teams that Forecard mentioned, Austin, they went out and got Andrew Tarbell, who I think is ready to be a starter in the league. Brad Stuver, good backup, possible starter. Brady Scott, one for the future. Could you have argued Alec Kann is more ready than Tarbell? Not after what Tarbell did late in the season. I think Andrew Tarbell showed he's ready to be a starter somewhere. So they're good. I think they answered that question well. Miami's a good question. They have John McCarthy, who played 810 minutes last year, who has played in the league before in Philly. They went to Tampa and did really, really well. McCarthy's good. Drake Callender, young, homegrown, not ready yet. They just signed Dylan Castanera, who Atlanta United 2 fans will remember. He's one maybe for the future. They signed him to a one-year deal with options for 22 and 23. I think they're set. Could they have brought in Alec Kann to be better than John McCarthy? It's just down to personal taste. I think Cann's a little bit better. I do. Depends on what you like as a coaching staff. Nashville wouldn't need it because they got Joe Willis. And Joe Willis is a starter for a while. They got a good one in Joe Willis. So another team, I don't know if there's another one who would bring him in as a starter. I think Austin and Miami would have been two interesting spots, but they've went in different directions. And they've got young guys that they feel like are future starters, maybe in a year or two. Castanera could be the guy day one in Miami now that they've signed him for a year and they've got options in the future. He could push McCarthy out. I think Brady Scott is going to have to wait. You've got Tarbell there for now in Austin. I think he's the starter day one.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing for Alec Kann is, I mean, you mentioned it, he's a 2 and he's at home. I don't think he would be a backup keeper, a number 2 consideration goalkeeper any place else in the league because he's already that and he's at home and he's getting to make that impact at home off the field as well. And so, there are a lot of different things at play there for Alec Kann. It would have to be a place where he would be a starter and have, those kinds of things.
Yeah, totally agree. Ryan Patrick Lee says red shorts would pop with that mock-up, the mocked-up new kit. Red shorts with that would actually be pretty cool. I'm down with that. I like that idea, Ryan. Chris Ashley says, do we think that black kit may be the third kit because the leaked third kit turned out to be the new training kit? My head just exploded, man. I don't know. Yeah, it could be. It absolutely could be. We're talking about leaks and mock-ups and speculation, and I don't know. I will wait and see. Sam Williamson does point out that Fernando Meza is still in Argentina. He is, at least last I saw on his Instagram. I follow him. I'm not stalking him. I think he had posted a story recently of being in Argentina. So, guys are starting to make their way back to the Atlanta area. I mean, it looks like, we know camp was already at least delayed from what it had initially been. So if he's got more time to wait it out, maybe he's sticking around to wait it out. The rumor was going to Tijuana and Xolos, and they've already started their season. So that doesn't seem to make any sense. If there's something new, that hasn't been reported yet. The rumor from the past was Xolos, and it doesn't look like they're in the position of making a move right now because they've already started. Lots of talk about Adidas and kits and training kits and third kits and primary kits and all the different kits and all of it. So you're
saying there's a lot of kit stuff.
There's a lot of conversation about speculation. That's what it is right now. Kevsey says Franco's transfer in was one of the great gets for us so far. If we can sign a 6 that has that level of impact on the club, it'll be great. Ding, ding, ding. That would be amazing. Would definitely be huge. J-Dub says, if we sell Franco, the I want my old Atlanta United back crowd will go crazy. They will. People will, because people love Franco Escobar and the passion he plays with. And, yeah, it'll be sad if he goes. That's part of it. And then somebody new comes in, and you're excited. You're, waiting to see what they can be. They perform well. You fall in love with that player. It's being a fan. It's loving the game. Players do come and go, and that's not a negative. It's just the nature of the business. The players want new challenges. A lot of times the players want to come and go, and that's okay. You want them to be successful in their careers too, and that might be elsewhere at sometimes. So it's just part of it. It happens. Jason Nick says, as long as Franco doesn't cut his hair or do some crazy dye job next year, I would love to see him. I think a lot of people like the longer hair on Franco. I think a lot of people were digging the longer hair on him. Whatever works for you. I liked when I played and tried to grow longer hair and have the headband look. I liked it for a while. Just my hair didn't cooperate with that. Not for very long. I ended up having to shave it off. So maybe I'm envious. Perfect Tommy says, unless you are Messi, you're going to move. More than likely. I mean, even now at Mbappe, they're talking about we like Neymar more at PSG. We're going to let Mbappe go. We're going to sell him. It can happen. It can happen. And, Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United, I always think of that one as like it was inevitable that he was going to go at some point because there was going to be an offer that the club could not refuse. And it ultimately came from Real Madrid, and it was obscene. You had to take it. You had to make that move. Great player. You'd love for him to been with your club forever, but the tea leaves were already moving that somebody was going to come in with an offer that you had to say yes to. And that's what happened. So it's where it goes. What else we got here? I think Modaflow is up to no good.
Is he doing more?
He's making
artwork?
Fake bombas.
More artwork.
He is making fake bombas.
Okay.
Modaflow, you don't have enough followers. I don't trust you.
At
That's
3
very
o'clock
funny,
today, Tottenham plays Liverpool.
They do. Are you excited about it?
Oh yeah. I mean,
that sounded really excited about it. Oh yeah, I'm excited.
I mean, I'll always watch a Premier League thing.
I am thrilled about this match. Oh yes, I am excited about it. That is John Nelson.
Oh yes, I am excited about it. Do you see where Jose Mourinho says that Jurgen Klopp can get away with more on the touchlines than he can?
That sounds like Jose.
Yeah, getting everything dialed up for the match. He says it was in Sky. Mourinho says that Klopp is not moderated in the same way that he is. Quote, in my case, I felt an evolution. I felt an evolution on the emotional control, Mourinho said, referring to his own touchline behavior. I felt an evolution in that the calmer I am, the better I can read the game, and I'm even happy that my assistants, they look to the touchline sometimes for communication, and I stay in a privileged position. I felt that I had to change my behavior, which I'm really happy with. That's my personal case. I cannot speak for other guys. What I can say is that when I didn't behave well, I paid the price. And I paid the price in 2 ways. One was to see matches on TV in the dressing room, and another price was big money fines. And I feel that for some of the other guys, it doesn't happen the same. It doesn't happen the same with them, but if the referee and the fourth official are there to do that job, I just hope that they do that job and act the way they have to act, end quote.
Classic Mourinho. There's shreds of truth there. And this is what Mourinho does. And this is what he's so good at. He takes a shred and he really pumps some air into it. And that's okay. I get it. I understand he's trying to create a narrative already because he wants, if Jurgen Klopp pops off at the mouth on the touchline, that he gets sent off. Yeah, he wants that to happen in this game. So he's planting the seeds. He knows what he's doing. Very, very, very cagey, very savvy. Jose Mourinho. And hey, it's all part of the game. Jurgen Klopp is very demonstrative on the touchline.
Yes.
That's
histrionics was the word that popped into my head.
At times it's histrionic. Sometimes it's just demonstrative. They go into this, Liverpool, without a win in 5 Premier League games. Teams are separated by 1 place and 1 point. Liverpool's in 5th. Tottenham's in 6th. 1 point separating. Liverpool has not won since beating Crystal Palace 7-0 on December 19th. It's a long time ago. That came 3 days after they beat Tottenham 2-1 at Anfield. Firmino with the 90th minute header. Spurs are unbeaten in their last 8 in all competitions. What are the numbers on this game?
Tottenham in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portals, a plus 213. Liverpool is a plus 125, and your draw is a plus 273.
Did we pick this one on our Soccer Over There prediction special?
Chelsea Wolves, yes, we did.
What did everybody go with on that one?
Jarrett, you and I went with the draw. Nick went with Spurs.
Yeah, I'm still on the draw. that was Monday night. I'm still there today. I think it's a draw. I think they cancel each other out a little bit. 1-1 is where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
I'll stick with that. It's not good enough for either one.
No.
I think that's what we get.
I'll say Son for Tottenham, and I'll go chalkish, and I'll go Salah for Liverpool.
All right, lots of other news stuff. A couple people in the Twitch pitch brought up the news on the NWSL. There's actually a few things on the women's front. The big news today, early this morning, it was announced that Naomi Osaka, global sports icon, as she was defined in the AP, tennis superstar, massive talent on the tennis front. She is invested in the North Carolina Courage. First investor in the Courage since Steve Malik acquired and relocated the team. Forbes' highest paid female athlete in 2020. She
$37.4 million?
A lot of money. She did very well last year. And she's putting that back into another generation of female athletes. And that was something she talked about on her Twitter post about it. This is very cool. I love that we're starting to see athletes invest, and not always soccer athletes, not former players. We're seeing athletes invest in growing the game on the men's and the women's front. You know, J.J. Watts talked about it. James Harden invested in the Houston Dynamo and the Dash. This is very cool, and it's great for the Courage. You know, we had the conversation when North Carolina FC dropped down, like, oh, what does this do for the Courage? Nothing. And now they're adding new investment. You're seeing a lot of clubs right now look for new investment like this. Is it a huge stake? We don't know. I don't know if there was any talk about how much of an investment this was. I don't think Steve Malik's going to give up control or anything like that. No, he shouldn't. But you need to bring in money right now, period. And if you're getting these investments, a few $1 million here, a few $1 million there, it can help make up some of the losses that you're dealing with. So this is huge. Osaka's 23, which is amazing to be able to do that at 23. That's the thing about some sports, though. You get started so young, and you can start making this kind of money so young. She's got a long career ahead of her, too. Feels like a good investment for her. And it's a good investment for women's sports. It's very cool to see this. So Naomi Osaka is part of the ownership group of the North Carolina Courage. We know when the Courage will get started. Challenge Cup tournament preseason. It's a preseason Challenge Cup this time around. It'll be in local markets. It'll start April 9th. 10 teams in the NWSL this year. Racing Louisville joins. 9th season will start on May 15th. The Challenge Cup is not part of the season. 24 games. 6 of the 10 will reach the playoffs. Regular season ends October 30th. The actual schedule for those will be released a little bit later. No break for the Olympics. So players will be missing if the Olympics happen, and that's still an if. Teams will be missing players at that time, so they'll have to lean into the depth a little bit, which I don't think is a bad thing. You'd love it if there could be at least a break for some of it. It's going to be tough to do just with the formatting, just with everything going on. So this is where you're at. No break for the Olympics. Of course, pandemic protocols, rigorous. Players must quarantine for 7 days prior to competition when it starts. Tested twice a week. Players or staff with confirmed cases must isolate for a minimum of 10 days. Players who have medical permission by a team physician to opt out of the season will receive full pay and benefits. So it's a medical reason to opt out. And teams can open training camps next Monday. So NWSL is getting closer to start. Excellent stuff. Love that. Dan Orlovitz covers soccer from Japan, covers the women's game in Japan very closely, reported yesterday that Japan was pulling out of the She Believes Cup. That was followed up on by Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer to say that Argentina is going to replace Japan in the She Believes Cup. It's a difference in level for sure, because Argentina qualified for their first World Cup in quite a while. In the last one, Japan has been a finalist here recently. Yeah, it's a drop in quality. It's exciting for Latin followers of the women's game to see Argentina in this and to see how they can develop. I was hoping you'd see them start to get these opportunities more after qualifying. Boca won the Argentine women's final, the first fully professional women's final. They won that big over River. Dominant performance. there's still gaps in quality. It's still all over the place. It's a different game. You see some spectacular goals in the Argentine Women's League. Players are also smaller than you're seeing in the high-level women's game. The size, the strength, the power, it's different. It's a different kind of game you're looking at. This is a good challenge for them. It's a good test for them. It's going to be really tough for them to compete with Canada, with the U.S. in this tournament. It's going to be really difficult. But you don't get there if you don't compete in these types of opportunities. So they have to make the best of it. I'm excited to see it. I hope they're competitive. I hope they're able to steal a point here or there in it. I hope they're able to push the U.S. and push Canada in this. But it looks like Japan's out and Argentina's in She Believes, which will be starting here in a few weeks.
From Jonathan Tannenwald, the last 10 minutes, United Women's Soccer and NISA are teaming up to try to launch a second division pro women's league next year. More details later.
Okay, everybody yelled at USL for doing this, so second division league would be good. It sounds like the USL is looking at a little bit lower than that, like more of the old W League or maybe somewhat of a hybrid of like League One. So if you're going to fill second division here, that's good. It's good that you're able to do this now while you're still growing the first division. But, yeah, there's a lot to do because the first division's not settled either. You got to add more teams. 10 is not enough. You got to get to 16, 18 at a minimum. You got to get to something like that at a minimum. But love the idea. Let's see if they can do it the right way and how it can do it. Are there any other details on this?
No, not yet. Story to be coming up from Tannenwald. He just put that bolo out about 10 minutes ago.
And Philadelphia Inquirer, great follow, Jonathan Tannenwald. They have a lot of really good digital subscriptions out there that you can get on if you want to follow the women's game. Jonathan's a must. So if you're looking to add to your women's soccer content, the Equalizer is a great source as well. But Jonathan is one of the best, and he covers Philadelphia Union in a great way as well. But on the women's side, he is top-notch. So UWS is like it's like the NPSL. It's like the summer leagues that is amateur. You can have college players playing. They're partnering with NISA, which is a third division men's league, if you're not familiar, to try to create a second division pro women's league. I want to see where the conversation is because people crushed the USL for talking about it, and they were not talking about creating a competitor to the NWSL. I think if UWS and NISA make it very clear from day one they are not competing with the NWSL, maybe that helps with it. Maybe that helps a little bit with it, but you got to manage that because, man, people got upset when there was talk about USL and women's game. Let's see. We've got a bunch of other stuff on the board that I'm going to run through quickly because we're not doing a 3-hour show, no matter what fake Cesar Luis Merlo says.
What fake bombas are out there?
Sad Christian Eriksen might stay at Inter. He might actually stick around. It's crazy. Antonio Conte might be convinced by that free kick to win the Coppa Italia match against Milan. 20 minutes in the last 8 Serie A games. I mean, does he want to stay? I think they just can't find a place for him to go, and they're trying to spin it. Tottenham, Arsenal, Leicester were all linked. PSG was linked. He's making €7.5 million a year. Inter's not going to let him go unless somebody's going to take all that on, and I don't think anybody's come up to say they're going to take all that on. So he might be sticking around and maybe playing 40 minutes the rest of the season. We'll have to see. And maybe coming on late to take free kicks. Who knows?
Listening to My Chemical Romance or anything from The Cure in his iPods?
He will be listening to mid-career Depeche Mode quite a bit. Edin Dzeko is wanting to train with his teammates at Roma, but Paulo Fonseca, the manager, is like, nope, you can't sit with us. They had a fallout. They're trying to shop him. There's talk about the Premier League. They can't even let him train right now, so that's going to be an interesting one. For you Chelsea fans, Billy Gilmore is considering the possibility of looking for a loan to get out of Stamford Bridge because he doesn't know how much playing time he will see with Thomas Tuchel in place. He wants to be part of the Scotland Euro squad this summer, so he's got to play. Makes sense. I don't know how much time there would be for him right now. A couple from South America, a couple from MLS. Marcos Paulo is a striker at Fluminense. He is going to join Atletico Madrid on a free this summer. That's really bad business from Fluminense. Going to sign a 5-year deal with Atleti. He'll stay through June 30th at Fluminense when his contract expires. Brazilian-born, played for Portugal's youth teams, free to negotiate because Fluminense didn't have him locked up. That's really, really bad business. Christian Pavone, remember him? He's been training with the reserves at Boca, waiting on a possible transfer. He's going to have ankle surgery today. Going to need 2 months to recover, not anything massive. But that rules out a move to Europe because the window's going to close in a few days. There's talk that the LA Galaxy could get back into the mix. There's talk that he would be happy to go back to LA. Boca's not going to loan him. They want a full transfer. Don't know how much that will be. 8, 10, 12. Do they want more than 10? Reportedly, they wanted 10 before. LA couldn't get to 10. Would they take 8 now? I don't know. But Pavone is going to have some surgery. He's going to be out for a couple of months. Brian Reynolds, according to Niccolò Schira in Italy, he will land in Rome on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Have his medicals with Roma, sign a contract through 2025, €1 million per year with bonuses included. Done deal on the loan with the obligation to buy from Dallas for €7.5 million. That's a little bit more than had been reported. 7 had been the magic number. But loan for now, obligation to buy, which means they have to do it. And Dallas will have 15% on a future sale, which feels a little low, but if you're getting more up front, then that's the trade-off. You get more money straight away. You're not banking on a future sale to get you that money. Aaron Long could be headed on a loan move to England. We've seen what Jordan Morris has done. Paul Arriola is still linked with a possible loan move to Swansea. That's not done yet. It could go down to the wire. Aaron Long could go on a loan to a side in the championship. Not sure who yet. Sky Sports is reporting that at least one side in the championship has made an approach to bring in Aaron Long on loan. 18 caps for the U.S. If he's going to go, he's got to go now. Yep. West Ham tried to get him before. It was rejected by New York Red Bulls. Will they allow him to go now? If MLS is going to start in April or maybe even a little bit later if they can't get their things together in the Zoom room. If you get him back at the end of June, and you're going to have him miss 10, 12 games, and you get a loan fee, maybe it's worth it to you.
Yep.
Maybe it's all worth it to you. That could be interesting. He's got to go if he's going to go now. It sounded like he wanted to go before. I think Red Bull should allow it if the fee is decent. And there's got to be an option to buy, and it's got to be a reasonable number. He's older, so I don't know what that magic number is. Is it 2, 3, 4 million? If it's over 4, if it's up to 4, I think that's probably reasonable. I'm not sure what his contract length is either. He's got to be getting pretty late in his deal, I think. Brighton posted their numbers yesterday. Loss of $92.3 million for the 2019-20 season. That's not the current season. It's probably going to be worse. It's another one just to give you a glimpse of where things stand. It's bad. They had budgeted for an increase in losses due to additional investments in recruitment, so that's part of it. Increases in player wages and transfer fees, but it was significantly increased by the unexpected drop in turnover due to the pandemic. This upcoming year is going to be worse for them. It's got to be. So that's just another glimpse at that. Mesut Özil has been unveiled in Turkey. He is there. Are they still trying to raise money to pay him?
Yeah, they're doing that. Well, they're doing the texting thing, yeah.
You like make a text and you're making a donation basically to pay his salary?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Mesut, this is where you're at these days?
Revenue source.
Yeah, revenue source. That's one way to put it. Oy. Anything else we got to hit?
Cristiano Ronaldo is being investigated by police in the city of Aosta over a ski trip, which could have broken Italy's COVID-19 regulations.
That's not good.
Valle d'Aosta police confirmed to Reuters an investigation is underway into a trip to the alpine town of Courmayeur by Ronaldo and his girlfriend Georgina Rodriguez earlier this week. Authorities were alerted to his alleged presence in the region by Videos on social media showing they were sitting on a snowmobile celebrating her birthday. Movement
And
between the
boom goes
Orange
the
Zone
dynamite.
regions in Italy, including the Piedmont and Valle d'Aosta, is forbidden under the current government decree.
Come on, man. Follow the rules. Wear a mask. Don't be stupid. Come on, Cristiano.
And speaking of stupid, we didn't get to talk about Manchester United and Sheffield United. The idiots on social media that went after Axel Tuanzebe and Anthony Martial.
No, they're not idiots. They're racists. They are full-blooded racists who have no place in the game. And find them. If they have tickets at the club, ban them. Give them their money back. Get them out. Ban them.
Yep.
No place in the game for this kind of nonsense. They're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. They are racist. And there's no place in the game for racism, and it needs to be eliminated from it. You're going to do that stuff on social media. You're going to post pictures like you're in places where you're not supposed to be. You're going to get popped. You're going to make comments like this on social media. You need to get popped. And you need to not be part of that club anymore. It's racist. There's just no other way around it. 100% racist. And to attack a player for a shot deflecting off of them and going in, I mean, get out. Get out. You're a moron. You don't deserve to be following that club anymore. That stuff's got to be eliminated. FA, you got really on board with cracking down on Edinson Cavani, saying stuff to his friends in a... if you did anything about learning the context, you would know that it was in a friendly manner. You got on board with that one pretty quick. You went into a big investigation. You better do it here. If these people are buying tickets to your events, you need to say you'd rather not have their money. If you're going to take it seriously, now is your time, FA. Now's your time. Find these people. Don't allow them into your events anymore. They should not be part of the game. It's disgusting. It's 100% disgusting. The She Believes Cup is official that Argentina is replacing Japan. Japan has withdrawn due to the current status of the pandemic in their country. They cited that current status. That's why they've pulled out. So Argentina slots into Japan's spot in the schedule. They will open with Brazil on February 18th. They will play Canada on February 21st. They will play the U.S. in the last game of the tournament on February 24th.
And I think that is everything.
No, it's not. You're not following the wires, John. Federico Higuaín has re-signed with Inter Miami. The Higuaín brothers are reunited.
Okay, so there's that one. I was going to mention...
I got more. I was
going to say Nashville SC loaning David Accam to Hammarby.
I don't even have that one yet.
12 months with an option to transfer.
I've got Yuka Ryatala going from Montreal to Minnesota. That has been announced for the rights to Andrew Booth, who played with the Greenville Triumph. His MLS rights are now with Montreal. And Yuka Ryatala goes to Minnesota. I'd assume that Montreal wants to sign Andrew Booth, and Chris Ashley will be throwing things. I'm assuming. Just assuming. It's a weird time right now with MLS, guys. I mean, it's weird because of moves like this. You're excited about it. Rumors about moves out, moves in, all of it. It's exciting. You know, we're all getting ready for a preseason that is supposed to start in 3 weeks or so. And looking ahead and talking about projections and all of it, yeah, it's all this labor stuff is hanging over our heads. It'll get resolved because it has to for both sides to have any kind of success this year. It will get resolved. It could get bumpier than it is now. I hope it doesn't because I don't like the collateral damage of that stuff. But it'll get resolved. We will have a season. I don't think it's going to be a huge delay. I don't even know if there will be a delay. I hope they get it done today, and then we can move on and we can start looking at lineups, and we can start looking at what this team needs, and we can start looking at how DC is going to play under their new manager, how Phil Neville's going to revitalize Miami, what Gabriel Heinze is going to do in Atlanta. We can talk about the fun stuff. There's still some work to do to get there, and I am really hopeful that people think about the big picture when they are talking about this today. I hope that Don Garber Abbott, Foose, whoever's having these conversations, think about the people that are not in the room who need you guys to get this done. Think about all the people who rely on the league for work. Think about the kids. Think about the soccer communities out there that are connected but separate from MLS. Think about all that. You guys both have a big responsibility, and I hope you guys can live up to it. I hope we don't continue to have this negativity about it because it's distracting from everything. It really is. It'll get resolved at some point, and I hope it's soon so we can move on to more fun things, like Matias Almeida being rumored to Chile. We had not talked about that. Thank you, Ricky. That is rumored. He's been rumored to join everybody, and it hasn't happened yet, so I'm still a little skeptical. This whole Chile thing has been just crazy since November? Since the Colombia job opened up, when they finally got rid of Quiroz after the back and forth there. And then they took forever to get Reinaldo Rueda from Chile. They had to pay Chile off to get him, so Chile's got some cash. Now Chile's job is open, and they've had links to Louis van Gaal. They've had links to Roberto Donadoni. They've had links to Herdan Crespo. Now Matias Almeida's name comes up. Almeida reportedly, Monterrey didn't want to pay, I think it was a $3 million exit clause to get him. Club America talked about it. I don't know where the negotiations went there. I think his name was linked to Palmeiras at one point. If it's a $3 million exit clause, I don't think Chile will do it. I don't think Chile will do it. I don't. So then I think it's all talk again and he doesn't go. It'd be horrible for San Jose for him to go now if it happens, but I don't see it. I don't think they'll pay the exit clause. If the previous reporting from Monterrey was correct about like $3 million that they'd have to pay to get him out of his contract, I don't think Chile's got that cash.
No.
I don't think they do it. So I think we've covered everything. There will be more. There'll probably be something that drops right after we shut down. That's how it usually goes. We'll talk about it tomorrow. For you guys,
service today.
Yes, go ahead, John.
Today, Bell Let's Talk is doing their mental health retweeting initiative. So if you use the hashtag Bell Let's Talk, then Bell will donate 5 cents to mental health initiatives in Canada. So if it's something that you're so inclined to do, the hashtag Bell Let's Talk is making the rounds today.
I would love to see somebody do that in the U.S. I'd love to see a U.S. organization do a similar thing. It's a really cool project. It's a really cool initiative. So,
and the union have jumped on it today. Actually, they're recommending folks do the same today too.
Yeah, quite a few have and will in the U.S. But I hope somebody does that to benefit U.S. agencies who look. It's a tough time. Mental health is a real challenge during a pandemic. So retweet some stuff, share some stuff if you are so inclined. That is a big initiative and. Yeah, we need to get one going in this country for our citizens as well. It's a big thing. For those of you who are on the Discord, if you're a subscriber here on Twitch, if you're a subscriber on Patreon, and first, if you haven't gotten your invite, please let me know. We'll get you in. But if you are on the Discord tonight at 7 o'clock, I'm going to do a Q&A about whatever has happened since the show, which who knows what it'll be. Just a total Q&A, it's text, it'll be fun. I mean, I can hop on with audio if I need to, but I can type pretty fast. So it'll be a Q&A in the general channel on Discord tonight. And we'll go as long as there's Q's to A. We'll do that this evening. So 7 o'clock on Discord. Get your questions lined up, and we will discuss this evening. 7 o'clock on Discord. If you're not a subscriber, you can go to patreon.com/soccerdown. Here, you can also subscribe on Twitch. You can use your Amazon Prime to get a Twitch gaming subscription. Ragamuffin, you got to save the Q's. You got to save the Q's because we're out. Save them for 7 o'clock. I'll be there.
No 3-hour shows, Merlo.
No 3-hour shows, Merlo. Not yet, anyway, until somebody pays us to do them. We'll be there eventually. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for letting us gripe a little bit. Thanks for letting us vent a little bit. And hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll be back tomorrow. Mucha platiel.
Mucha platiel.